Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton,
Here.
Davison,
Here.
Ferretti,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Martucci,
Here.
Councilmembers Noonan,
Here.
O'Keefe, Mayor Spear.
Here. Also present, Borough Manager, Director, Department of Public Works, Scott Heck, Deputy Borough Manager and Borough Clerk, Kelly Hallowitz, Borough Attorney, Richard J. Klimak, and Borough Chief Financial Officer, Debbie Buchanan. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey now. Wasn't me.
I don't know. Okay, getting right to the agenda. Having no proclamations or presentations this evening, we're going right into approval of minutes. Kelly.
Sure. First, I need a motion to approve the special executive session meeting and the executive session minutes of May 1st. Councilman Noonan was absent.
I'll move it. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
Yes.
Ferretti,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan,
Abstain.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Mayor Spear.
Yes.
Motion to approve the business meeting and executive session of April 17, 2018. All were present.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
Yes.
Ferretti,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Mayor Spear.
Yes.
And motion to approve the April 3rd, 2018 business meeting. Councilman Noonan was absent.
I'll move it. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
Yes.
Ferretti,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan,
Abstain.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Mayor Spear.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, the general public comment. Anybody wishing to address the mayor or council, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments brief and non-repetitive.
Evening, folks. Peter Sando, 24 Highpoint Lane. Just to revisit a pet peeve of mine, don't mean to be a nag, but being a former member of the now defunct Cable TV Committee, which made a lot of strides at, improving the system here, thanks to Tracy and some other members at the time. I was happy to see that the YouTube channel was archiving the council meetings up until the election, until November of 2017. And when I raised this subject last time at a meeting, few meetings ago, I was told that a lot of technical jargon about like why it stopped, why the meeting ceased to be archived on the YouTube channel. I don't know if it's a coincidence that it happened right when the makeup of the council changed, but I was not pleased when especially when the reorg meeting wasn't put up on YouTube, where all the families were here and Kathy's daughter sang, and it was a celebratory bipartisan event, and it didn't get up on YouTube. And subsequent meetings after that haven't. Now, I did some experimenting myself. My daughter recorded a CAG meeting, Community Advisory Group. I used a basic program to convert it and post it on YouTube. I have the slowest internet connection that money can buy from Opt Online, and it took 2.5 hours to post it, and it went right up. There was no problem. I think you have to verify your account, which seems I was already verified, but I'm sure the borough was verified too, because they were doing it for 2 years. And every meeting for 2 years is on that YouTube channel, the Ringwood YouTube channel. So again, I appeal to you to reinstate that practice And hopefully we'll see all those old meetings pretty soon on YouTube, so we can, if anybody wants to do any research, I mean, it's the same as, it's actually better than having tapes in the library like we used to do. But anybody can access on the internet and review an old meeting, or if they have an issue they want to research, it's a valid archive to have for the borough. So please address that if you can. If not, I'd like you to contact me and let me know why. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Rumaki, 99 Edward Drive. I want to revisit something from the previous meeting. Previous meeting, we were talking about the shopping center, the housing, and Councilwoman O'Keefe made some remarks about transportation and so forth. And I think people may have gotten the wrong idea. The thing is that Borough and Passaic are in one HUD group. The median income in this area is $100,000. To qualify for low income, the low income limit is actually around, is $73,600. It's the highest level in New Jersey. The average in New Jersey to qualify for low income housing is $68,000. So the thing is, and it's kind of interesting because we're going to talk about the budget. There's probably a lot of people who work in this borough, work in this town, who fall under those limits and have cars. This isn't like extremely low income. This isn't Section 8 housing. I've been involved, my wife and I have been involved building houses, supporting Habitat for over 25 years. We've got a lot of experience in low income housing. And to give people impression that this is going to be, you know, if it comes to happen, that this is going to be people on welfare is not a fair thing. The other thing is that, the second thing really is, we just went through a very bad storm, weather-wise, and I think this region's going through another storm. It's a thing called the Fair Share Housing Council. Fair Share Housing Council is the state Supreme Court appointed intervener on housing cases. Every case you see in the paper, they're there, okay? The trend is bad. 6-9 months ago, they were getting densities of 14, 16 to an acre. They just, Midland Park, if you check, they just posted their ordinance. 18 units to the acre they went. Park Ridge blew their budget up because they spent $320,000 last year on legal bills without budget. This year they got to add more because they're looking at a 24. Fair Share Housing Council is supporting a lawsuit for 900 homes on 37 acres. It's an unprecedented size and density. What people have to understand is Fair Share Housing Council is good at this, and they're motivated, because what you don't hear about is Fair Share Development Corp. I'm sure Mr. Klimak has heard about them. The lawyers that run Fair Share Housing Council also run a low-income development corporation. They win cases, they build houses. So the thing is, as much as I don't think anybody here really wants to see a large development coming, I think Mayor Spears said there's a constitutional right to housing. The Supreme Court has made that clear. There's a law that deals with the Highlands Act. It could trump. I'm just, I think people have to really be aware that and watch what's happening, because they're starting, I don't know, I haven't seen them lose yet. They settled, the best settlement anybody got was, I think, Chatham. But the thing is, they're every week they're inking another deal. So we have to be prepared. And I think the thing is, you need to be prepared, because if you lose, if it comes down, if you've got something prepared, you can negotiate. If you have nothing on paper, they'll dictate it to you. Remember, this is the guys the Supreme Court appointed. So I don't think anybody's appealed and won. So we have to be careful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Venkatall, 24 Highpoint Lane. The issue with the development on Skyline Drive is that the council is using affordable housing as an excuse. The idea that maybe Ringwood is going to have to build 300 units, that's not going to happen in the Highlands. We would certainly, as Mr. Dunn said, who's a planning board attorney, that could be fought tooth and nail. Where are they going to put it? On the steep slopes? It's just not going to happen. And to use the fair share housing and low-income housing as a ruse to support a mega development on Skyline Drive, which just is not going to pass muster at the Highlands Council. Just sewering alone, it's just not going to happen. There are many ways to do low-income housing. We have Spectrum for Living. We have the house that's next door to Borough Hall right here, where they have group homes. And you have to think out of the box in a place like Ringwood. There are homes that could be renovated, that are low-income, maybe foreclosed on, but they certainly don't belong on Skyline Drive. That, it just doesn't fit with the character, and we should use the Highlands Act as a positive for Ringwood. And as Mr. Dunn said, it should be fought, and it would be fought tooth and nail. We are not Chatham. We are not Midland Park. We are not Oakland. This is the Highlands. There's no land to develop here. It's protected. So you have to think out of the box and think in other terms, maybe renovating houses. I'm sure that he knows if he's dealing with Habitat for Humanity, there's other ways of doing things. But to use the fact that you want to put a 3-story development on Skyline Drive that nobody in Ringwood wants, we don't want to look like Wayne. If we wanted to live in Wayne, we'd move to Wayne. So I just think that there are other ways that we can fulfill our obligation, but it certainly is not going to be 300 units.
All right, I'm the short one. It's got to come down. Good evening, everyone. When reading through the minutes of the March 20th, 2018 business meeting, I noticed that upon the meeting reconvening, after executive session, action was taken to retain the services of Cleary, Jacob, Alfieri, and Jacobs to conduct a personnel investigation. I also happened to notice that the vote seemed visibly partisan, with Councilwoman O'Keefe and Councilman Ferretti abstaining. I also noted that Councilman Bolton was absent for that vote. I'm wondering if there's a timeline as to when the investigation will be complete, or to when the public is made privy as to why we needed to enter into a professional services agreement, the cost to the municipality. And in executive session, recommendations are made by the borough manager, and I'm wondering why there were abstentions by some council members. So I know that that won't be able to come out until, obviously, that comes out. I'm just wondering timeline.
Right,
That was
I
all.
don't think you could have any discussion on that because of the nature of the investigation. Okay.
Anyone else?
Rich Ebersbach, 120 Upper Lakeview Ave. So, on the subject of the Superfund site, I see everybody saw in the trends that the tests were conducted by the town and came up non-detect on the wells. I guess this was something that was not required, but just more or less for peace of mind. And I gotta say, this is the first article that I've seen that where they actually cite that there's 3 areas. So they separated the 3 separate areas. OConnor, they didn't mention them, but they kind of singled out Peter's Mind. And the whole, seems like the campaign that was run was based on a full cleanup of O'Connor, which kind of goes against everything that I've been reading for the last year or two, and what the EPA has been advocating, that there is no threat to the water. The district water supply has said that, EPA has said that, DEP has said that. There's no exposure. There's no human exposure. So we just seem to be going around and around in circles here for a number of years at this point. And yet the data all points to there is, there's no threat to the water. Being a resident in town the last couple of years, I've heard all kinds of, wild, I don't know if you want to call them accusations, but scenarios. And I guess it was in the April CAG meeting, there was, again, EPA, DEP reiterating, and I think that, was it Joe Gowers had said, for years now he's been saying, I heard him say it up at Ryerson School a couple of years back, that there is no threat to the water. Yet we're still debating this. So I know you guys had a session with the attorneys last month or the beginning of this month, and I questioned you guys a couple of times on where do I stand as a taxpayer. I'm getting all my information right off either the Ringwood website or sometimes the CAG, and I'm not seeing any data that supports a cleanup of O'Connor. So I guess my question would be, and I know you guys have already stated to some degree or another that you haven't really changed your opinion on this, but given the test results, your interaction with the attorneys, has anything, have you modified your opinion on the site? Thanks.
Vancatol, 24 Highpoint Lane. The O'Connor Landfill has over 100,000 tons of toxic waste. The reason that the recycling center is being built there is because you can't touch that stuff. People live there. The water, the aquifer at the Superfund site is contaminated. The DEP, the EPA, Ford, the Borough insist that that contamination will never reach the reservoir or our borough wells, but you don't know. Because as I've said 100 million times up here, we live on fractured bedrock, and no one knows where the groundwater is going. And the fact that the aquifer at the Superfund site is contaminated is a big deal. And the reason that the CAG and myself personally have always supported a cleanup of the OConnor landfill is because there's toxic waste there. And the EPA, the original record of decision, stated that it's the safest way to clean up or to deal with O'Connor is excavation. Now, what people might not realize is, and we realize it when we sit at the CAG every meeting, it's going to be a humongous construction project, whether you excavate or whether you cap. It's going to take over a year and a half to gather up all of that toxic material to the center of the site, cover with the permeable cap. And it's after all of that construction and a detention basin that's going to be huge, it's going to catch some of the water and it's going to remain there, there's still going to be toxic waste in Ringwood. It just boggles the mind. And it seems that the only reason the borough decided to stop the excavation is to save Ford $32 million. Now, I know that Wanda Monahan and the council has been, since their decision after the ROD, sort of talking about that our taxes are going to increase if we excavate. Well, you know what? It's your job to fight Ford. They polluted this town. Bottom line. Ringwood did not. That's what you got to go on. You guys refused to remove the sludge on Sludge Hill because you said it was contaminated with Ford. You refused to remove the garbage that was dumped there by the borough because you said that the garbage was contaminated by Ford sludge. So that's exactly what happened at OConnor. Whether there's garbage there, it's been contaminated by Ford's dumping. And the fact that people live up there and you guys have agreed to build an unneeded recycling center in a residential area which should be open space is just a very bad decision for Ringwood and for the people that live there and the people that also live in other parts of Ringwood. It's just a stigma that's been there for almost 60 years and you're leaving it there. It's the wrong decision.
All right. See, no one would like to move to close public.
Second.
Roll call on closing public?
Sure. Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison? Ferretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mayor Spear?
Yes. Anybody want to address anything that we've heard at public session? Yeah? I have a couple of comments, I just can't, I'm just not going to choke down, Jim.
And I would like to make a comment also.
You may have by all means.
I want to thank Paul Rumaki for getting up and talking about the low-income housing. I want to clarify something. It seems there was a misconception from what I said at the last meeting, that I have opposition to low-income people in general. I can assure everyone that isn't the case. My grandparents came from Ireland before the Easter Rising. They settled in Hell's Kitchen when it was really hell. They lost 5 out of their 7 children. So my family knows poverty, and I have no problem with helping and supporting low-income people. I come from Bergenfield. It's a working-class town. My father worked very hard. He didn't have the opportunity of going to college or even finishing high school due to having to go to work. I have no problem with low-income people coming. There are 2 houses for sale right now, one in Erskine for $120,000. There's another home for sale right on my block, Upsaw Avenue, for $120,000. That would fit income of $68,000. What I was trying to stress is that we're using this COA to try to push unwanted development on Skyline Drive. There's enough traffic there already. I can't get my husband to go down to Stop and Shop at rush hour due to the traffic that we were experiencing there on Skyline Drive. I agree that there's alternatives and that we should pursue them. But I also agree, working in Montvale and seeing what's happening in Park Ridge and in Montvale, that we should take Tom Dunn's advice and fight this tooth and nail. Why should we be forced to do development that isn't wanted when we are protected in the Highlands area? And that was my point. In no way would I ever discriminate against low-income people, ever. Thank you.
Anyone else?
YouTube.
Oh, yeah, if you could just, I mean, if you feel like.
Tracy,
We can hear it again next month and you can do it then.
okay, yeah, Tracy spoke about it. I am certainly not a YouTube expert. We've given her whatever tools she needs, but we do have some issues with Cablevision, whether relative to consistent service and stuff here. So I'm not an expert on it. I'll find out and I'll get back to you.
We'll get to it.
So,
And I'm not too concerned about YouTube necessarily. It's a great nice to have. Most of your tax dollars are being spent by the Board of Education. You're not going to be able to see their meetings televised anywhere, never mind archived in video format. I've never seen good sound quality coming out of the county freeholder broadcasts. They just never seem to have been able to get that down, and I don't know if they have that stuff on YouTube. So it's a nice to have, and when we can get to that, let's please do. One thing I heard that, and you just repeated it yourself, Mrs. O'Keefe, that we're using the affordable housing mandates as a ruse to jam in development. That is 180 degrees wrong. That is a complete inversion of what's going on here. What we start with is we have a terribly underperforming commercial area in the center of town. We are in the Highlands preservation area. Areas that have impervious surface are very valuable because that's the only place where you're going to be able to do development within the Highlands preservation area. Now, these areas are underperforming. Under our current zoning, which has been in place now for as long as I've been around town, these sites have not been redeveloped. As a matter of fact, they've continued to deteriorate. We can continue and watch them deteriorate. That can continue under our present zoning because apparently there is not enough of an incentive for anybody to build anything there or to improve them. If the incentive was there, we would know that because somebody would actually do the improvements. So we have to try to do something with our shopping centers. We need the shopping centers because we need the tax revenue. It is a ratables chase. We have a very limited section of land that's been disturbed in town that we're going to be able to collect ratables from. We really owe it to ourselves to try to maximize the ratables that are available on these disturbed lots. So recognizing that, we do need we need a better shopping center for ourselves. I think as a society, as a town, we kind of deserve something a little bit better than what we got going on right now. We need it because our budgets will be, this year's budget was bad. The budgets going out into the future they do not project very well if we don't try to get ourselves some new revenue streams. So we got to look at this. And during the course of looking at this, and we've always had, COA, we've been always been able to satisfy it when it was the Council on Affordable Housing. We've been able to satisfy it by the means that people have mentioned, assisted living and other such type of devices. That does not get you to 290 units that the Fair Share Housing Center is looking for out of Ringwood. That's a whole lot of assisted housing. That's not happening. Also, we got to recognize that they are watching the Fair Share Housing Center. You are not going to build a development without taking into account some kind of fair share affordable housing. They're not going to let it happen. They're going to come in and they're going to get some. Now, there's a couple approaches you can take. Fight them tooth and nail. Mr. Rumaki stepped up and he made a good point. Fighting them tooth and nail. I don't know. Maybe that was the Park Ridge move, where they're 500 grand in the hole in legal bills and are coming up with some of the highest densities that have yet been promulgated in this whole deal. I don't know if that's really a good way to go about things. You can try to actually plan and take a look at it and recognize the context and the environmental sensitivities and all the requirements that it's going to take. The wastewater thing is a big deal, but the wastewater thing has to be solved if we're going to do just commercial. Okay, just commercial, it's going to be done. Actually, these developers, in order to actually make their development, their arithmetic work, they need rental apartments. There's going to have to be an affordable housing type of component to that. What's driving this is the shopping centers and our dying rateable base. Okay, we have to address the affordable housing if we're going to address that. We have the option to sit here and say, you know what, we're not doing anything with Skyline Drive, and we're not doing anything with affordable housing. If I saw that there was nothing that we could do with Skyline Drive, there'd be no way I would propose anything for affordable housing, just strictly affordable housing on its own merits. That seems to me a little bit of a stretch in a town that they've environmentally constrained, such as Ringwood. So, if we want to do something on Skyline Drive for the betterment of the whole community, we're going to have to accept that there's going to be some kind of affordable housing component. We have to try to plan for it. We have to try to make the best arguments in good faith and say, this is about the most we can get. And you present that to Fair Share Housing, and then you see where the cards lie. It is not that we're using this as a, well, let's back up one second too. There's always the threat of the builder's remedy. That's always out there. The chances of success of these builder's remedies will depend very much on the particular site in question. We don't know how that's going to break. I don't want to know. I do not want to be on the defendant's side of that when that all comes through. Then there are really bad decisions you get to make. Okay, now you're deciding between horrible and the worst thing ever. We don't want to be there. We want to see if we can just like stay up over here where we might be able to get something that's usable for the whole community, that helps out with the wastewater situation, which is a nightmare up in that area. Gets us some better shopping opportunities, and yes, you're going to have to add a little bit of density to do so. That sounds like a better trade-off. I think we should have some more discussions on these trade-offs. But let's recognize that we're grown-ups, and we are making trade-offs in a bad situation, and we are trying to weigh very, very different, multiple bunch of factors that are interconnected, and it's not simple stuff. So when we call stuff like it's a ruse, or we're using stuff as an excuse to build mega developments, that is not useful type of rhetoric. All right, that's garbage. What we're trying to do is trying to figure out what's the best way to go forward here, because there's nothing been done at the shopping centers for 50 years, and it might be about time to do something, or maybe they're just going to fall down in front of our eyes, and we'll wonder what happened then. So that's so much for the Skyline Drive stuff. The Superfund Site, OCDA. There isn't no 100,000 tons of toxic waste in OCDA. There still isn't any 100,000 tons of toxic waste in OCDA. I hear that on like a monthly basis. You could, if you were the type of person who actually cared about what was really going on, you would look at the remedial investigation report for the O'Connor disposal area. You take a look at that. You look in the back, one of the appendixes, might be Appendix D, might be a cost estimate. In the cost estimate, they're going to tell you that 90% of the waste is average municipal garbage, and 10% of the waste is hazardous and is going to have to be treated in a different fashion. That's out of the same whole total 110,000 tons, 90% regular standard run-of-the-mill garbage, and 10% hazardous waste. You can look it up. Now, this report's been out, I don't know what, 2013, 2012. It's been out for a while now. This is a fact. It doesn't matter how many times you say that there's 100,000 tons of toxic waste in that. There's not. And there's not going to be. So, you know, well, I'll mention this again next week. Maybe I'll bring. I got an 11/17 blow up of the cost estimate too. But I didn't bring it with me, just so I can show you what it actually looks like on paper. The reason the recycling center is being built is not because you cannot touch that stuff. It's really not advisable to touch that stuff. It's being capped because you're not supposed to touch that stuff. The reason the recycling center is being built is because we need a cap on there. Why we need a cap? We need a cap because 90% of that stuff is regular household garbage. It's a good chance that the borough's going to be responsible for taking that all out. Just like, as Ms. Toll said, she said you refused to take the garbage out of Sludge Hill because you said it was contaminated with Ford sludge. Well, yeah, that's what the borough did. Now, what's happened next? What happened after that? And that was, I want to say, February 2008. I was just brand new on the council. Didn't know what the hell was going on. Well, it turns out that the DEP, right, the DEP said, there was the argument. EPA says, okay, Ringwood, that's your pile, you take that out. Ford, you take those containers out. And that heavy metal and stuff, yeah, Ringwood, you get that. And the borough said, no, we're not touching that. That's contaminated, intermingled with their material. We're not touching it. Argue, and then comes the DEP. The NJDEP, our friends from Trenton, came in and said, Ringwood, you're operating a solid waste dump on that site. That pile of stuff that you're supposed to remove is a solid waste dump. You don't take it away, we're going to start fining you. So we got that order from the DEP. It turns a little bit. The DEP actually authorized the removal of all that material at the cost of around $650,000, maybe $670,000 or so. That bill was sitting down in Ken Patron's desk down in Trenton, as a matter of fact. That's our bill. It may come one day. I don't know. I'm really hoping it don't, but it may. But it's odd because that was a losing argument in 2008. In 2008. I'm not going to go back to a losing argument in 2008 and say, let me ring it up again here because, hey, now we're playing for $30 million. What's the matter with you people? We're not doing this, okay? We need a cap on that site because the borough has exposure. The borough's not looking to save Ford any money. The borough's not looking to spend a lot of money to take out materials that were deposited there in late 1960s that are as far as the municipal waste goes, isn't harming anybody. As far as the hazardous waste goes, hasn't migrated anywhere, and it presents no threat to the water, to the reservoir. It presents no threat to the water system. It presents no threat nowhere. You cap it, and it's done. Now, if we did all that work at OCDA to say we did all that work at OCDA to remove it all, one thing that should be noted is you would still have toxic waste in Ringwood. Why is that? Two other sites, the Peters Mine Pit and the Cannon Mine Pit, both have toxic waste that's going to be capped. Nobody seems to be talking about that, even though the Peters Mine Pit is actually the site where the groundwater plume of contamination is coming from. It's all derived from the Peters Mine Pit. That's where you're seeing the problems. Were you to remove everything from OCDA, you would see no change in the groundwater around there because there's no contaminated plume coming from the OCDA. That's in the proposed plan 2013. They said so, pretty much one straight sentence. There is no plume of contamination derived from the OConnor disposal area. I think it's right in there. The original record of decision, too. The original record of decision did call for removal at the OConnor disposal area. The reason they called for removal at the OConnor disposal area is that the O'Connor disposal area, a cap would not be able to protect the O'Connor disposal area from trespassing ATV riders who would damage the cap and then might, expose that material to possible contamination, touching people and whatnot. That was their only reason. That was the best shot they had, was that trespassers wouldn't be able to ride their recreational vehicles on this cap. Therefore, we have to make somebody spend $30-something million to take it all out. Normally, that wouldn't really, raise my temperature any, except if my taxpayers are part of the people who are going to have to spend that $30 million to take that out. Then that kind of catches my attention. And then I think that you have to go a little bit further than that to actually make your case that a cap is not appropriate there and a full removal is. Yeah, I can continue, but I'll stop right there. Anybody else before we move on?
Briefly.
Great.
So the easiest thing to clarify regarding the March meeting, I was absent. I had business travel, so I attended as much of the meeting as I could, and then I left prior to the executive session. So that was the easiest thing to say. Moving on in, I guess, order of difficulty. Do agree that YouTube is nice to have. Technically that's definitely accurate. It is a good thing. I will say that it is very helpful in terms of transparency and access. Only Optimum customers are able to get the meetings live or on replay. I don't have any data, but I would see their base as, at the very least, shifting. People are always asking about alternatives. I am completely biased in this, and I can own it because I've cut the cord, so I do get my internet from them. But I can't see any meetings unless they're online or another streaming service. So I do think that it is important to prioritize and work through that. In terms of the redevelopment, I think that the underlying desire is to simply consider alternate visions. I think the primary issue is not with low-income housing at all. I think the issue is just housing and increasing density, particularly in ways that have the potential to change the character of the town that we all love. And I think that in terms of weighing trade-offs, those conversations become easier and more tangible when we're looking at alternatives. So option A versus option B. And I think that so far, anyway, the only things that have been advanced have been down a singular course of action. And I think that an option that would not change the zoning to be mixed use and would focus on keeping it residential and seeing what developers or options we could solicit would be viable. I think that would go a long way towards not only engaging the community, getting community input, but then peace of mind should trade-offs have to be made. West Milford, for example, has gotten a very nice facelift to their downtown area, has gotten new stores in, and they didn't add housing in that area. As you go through Warwick, there are a number of standalone, visually appealing, in character developments that are full and are just stores. They're not mixed use. So I think that just putting a little bit of, I'll call it, I don't want to imply that there hasn't been effort, but visible effort and options down what that path could look like would be appreciated and probably go a long way as well. Regarding the Superfund, I'll just keep it brief and say that the focus on OConnor has always been simply a timeline issue. The fact that it was first from an order of operations standpoint, and that's really why, at least in the conversations that I've had, why people focus on that over the mines is because the water remedy or recommendation is not out yet. And in those conversations, the mines are overwhelmingly acknowledged as the primary source of the problem and a strong desire for an active remedy. And I think there's just a wish and a desire to have less, as little contamination as can be left in town as being seen as a positive. And I think that the depths of the mines are, with the exception of active remediation, just kind of known that it's going to stay down there. And so people just want as little in town as possible. And then I ran out of time to write notes.
Anyone? Okay. We're into old business and a budget presentation from our manager.
We also have with us tonight Jim Cerullo from our auditor.
Yeah, thank
And sorry we didn't mention that, and I'm glad you had the opportunity to hear all of this tonight. Deb, you want to
That'll teach you.
assist me here?
It's okay.
I don't know where I'm going to stand, but I don't have my back to something. Best I can. So we've been working hard on the budget. We had a great budget committee this year that helped me, Debbie and I, develop a budget. As we've mentioned for many years, the budget is difficult. The budget, as we are reducing more and more of our income, is becoming more and more difficult to balance each year. You're going to see later, the reservoir had an impact on us. Some of the commercial areas had impacts on us. We're going to talk about that very briefly, but this evening we're just going to go through the process. The first slide is the budget process. In October, we start with the department requests from all the departments. We have budget hearings. February, we start drafting the budget. We meet with the budget committee quite a few times to discuss different options. We have public input on the budget in February, March. We introduce in April, and then we have our adoption in May. This year, our operating budget that was introduced was $15,964,620.21. This is a decrease from last year's operating budget of $95,994.63. Some of the additional revenues that we have this year in the budget: Clean Communities grant, and although this is estimated, $31,122.36. And all of you have this at your place, right? Yeah, okay, as well. Interest on, our tonnage grant of $16,142. Interest on investments, a whole $29,000. And the sale of recyclable materials, $31,435. The recycling materials, there was a period in time where the recycling materials, we went to different markets, we shopped the markets all the time, but the market is saturated, so the prices have gone down significantly. Metal is now creeping up a little bit. We do a lot of separation of metal. We try to get the best price we possibly can, separating out the more precious stuff from the heavy iron and the aluminum. So, but that income has dwindled over the years because of the saturation. Shared services. We rent our facilities and our employees and services out to other communities. Bloomingdale, we do their streets and roads for $37,334. We do stormwater cleaning in Pompton Lakes, $13,000 a year. We have a shared service where Wanacue pays us to run their health department for $80,000. We also, Debbie, being our new CFO, has a shared service with Pompton Lakes where she goes down there half a day a week or so, and she does their CFO services out of Ringwood, and so that's new income this last year. Surplus. And I'm glad that Jim is here in case they have to ask how we get our surplus. But I always look at the surplus that we generate. I don't look at the school surplus, even though that really affects our surplus numbers. But our balance as of December 31st, 2016 was $3,267,806. Surplus used in 2017, $1,668,000. The balance at the end of the year, December 31st, 2017, was $2,595,704. And we used $1,268,000 in surplus this year. And the remaining surplus is $1,327,704. This is a chart really that shows what surplus we've used since 2014. And as you can see, in 2014, we used $401,000. 2015, $595,000. 16, $577,000. And this year, surplus dropped. I'm sorry, these are the amounts. The surplus dropped by $664,000 in 2017. So why did our surplus drop? There's a couple reasons. First of all, our budgets are getting tighter and tighter, and we're not you know, as the budgets shrink, as they get tighter and tighter, there's not as much left over at the end of the year to move into surplus. Our miscellaneous revenue, not anticipated in 2016 was $422,610. In 17, it was $141,877. So as you can see, those numbers are shrinking because you're operating tighter and tighter. The deferred school taxes in 2016, which is how some of our surplus is generated, was $700,000, whereas in 2017 it was $313,000. So as you can see, these numbers are dropping, and as a result, your surplus is dropping, which affects us. Ready, Deb? I'm not going to read this whole chart. This will also be online, but this is the distribution of the budget dollars. It goes through all the departments and what the percentage of the budget is and the total dollar for each of the actual departments within the building. The next chart, this is the budget appropriation, and this is the budget dollar distribution. And this talks about, again, it's a chart of all the budgets, and this will also be online. As you can see, the police department is the largest budget, followed by the DPW, followed by insurance. Those are the three top budgets within the building. This is always a popular chart with our employees. This is the salary distribution. As you can see, this is how the employees, what percentage of the pie is for employees for the salaries. Public Works is 31%, Recreation is 3%, Health is 4%, Court is 2%, Finance and Administration is 14%, the Building Department is 3%, and the Police Department is 53%. Although I will remind everybody that the Police Department is the only 24/7 operation that we have here in town, although after this winter, the DPW feels like it was 24/7. Health insurance costs. 2018, the cost of health care was $1,645,000. Employee contributions for that, all of our employees, the last couple of years we've negotiated into the contract where they contribute. The employees contribute $226,000 of that. We also introduced an opt-out options where people who have insurance elsewhere can opt out, and we pay them up to $5,000 to opt out. That's allowed by law now. 19 employees opt out, which is a premium savings of $379,681. The opt-out paid to the waivers that we pay to the employees equal $86,677, but we realize a savings off of a full benefit of $293,003. This chart shows you the average assessed tax increase at the municipal level. And it shows you, going back to 2006, the increases for each particular year. If you go back to 2013, I'm not going to go all the way back to 2006, but 2013 it was $11.14. 14 it was $17.04. In 15th it was $12.27. 16 it was $39.01. Last year was $24.85. And this year, the proposed budget is $69.73, and that's to the average house, which is based at a value of $301,982. All that being said, it really only matters about taxes, but this is where we fall in Passaic County. The line that goes across the page shows where we are with all the other communities, and we are at the same level for the tax comparison across the board with every town in Passaic County, with the exception of Totowa. Totowa is below us, but we are the next lowest. As you can see, many of the others are much higher in terms of tax rate comparison. Tax appeals. I didn't put all the tax appeals on here, but these are significant tax appeals, and these are appeals for commercial, industrial, and the reservoir appeals from last year. Mazarian Shopping Center, their tax appeal that's affecting us this year is $38,000. The shopping center across the street, Rackland, their appeal is affecting us by $30,000 this year. Two industrial properties on Marking Avenue and Executive, one is $3,000, the other one is $9,000. We have one down the street that this year is $2,500, and the tax appeal for the reservoir this year is affecting us $38,000. That's only the first third. Next year it'll be 2/3, so it'll be almost $80,000. The year after that it'll be almost $120,000. And keep in mind that That's only our portion. The reservoir tax appeal also is going to affect the school. I think this year it's approximately $100,000 to our schools. By the time it's all said and done, after the 3-year write-off of this devastating tax appeal, it's going to be $500,000 income loss to the borough of Ringwood, whether it's the schools or the municipality. So revenues are declining, and we have to make up for it. One of the reasons we cut the budget, even though insurance went up and salaries went up and the cost of just about everything went up, the reason that we had to cut is because we know that this year this is how it was going to affect us, so we planned for it. We also know that if we don't start positioning ourselves for next year and the year after, it's going to be devastating tax increases going to everybody. So we're trying to budget for the next 3 years to try and offset some of those costs. So the tax appeals hurt, and there's no way around it. So those are just 6 of the tax appeals for $121,000 that affects you this year. That doesn't include any residential tax appeal that came forward, although there were not as many as there had been in the past. So our tax office is doing a good job at trying to manage that, but that's reality. Again, this is just a chart of the appropriation from this year to last year, and it shows the $90-some thousand decrease from last year to this year. So, in summary of the budget, the 2018 budget is introduced at $15,964,620.21, $95,994.63 less than last year. We are under the appropriation spending cap by $1,111,037.99, and the average assessed home is $301,982. And this is an increase of $69.73. Now, I said that last year, and people called me and said, my taxes went up by a little more than that. This is an estimate, and it's an estimate because we don't have all the tax bills in, we don't have the county rates in, so this is an estimate. It could go up a couple bucks, it could go down a couple bucks, based upon when the schools come in and the final tax rate is struck. So don't call me tomorrow saying my taxes went up more than that. So that's really the municipal budget. I also want to take you through the water budget a little bit this year. The water budget, we have a very difficult water budget this year. Water budgets are different than the municipal budget. The water budget is based upon, you can only budget for the revenues that you had the previous year. It's not the same, and unfortunately with a wet year, our revenues were down significantly. So as a matter of fact, I think we ended the year with I think it's $54,000 less in revenue than we anticipated, so we had to make that up. So this year the water budget, and this isn't part of your taxes. This is only for the water users that actually pay this, but it's important because you guys are also passing this evening. So the water operating budget is introduced as $1,549,046.03. The operating budget has increased from 2017 by $31,486.03. This is a chart of our water revenues over the last bunch of years. As you can see that in 2017 it dropped. Sorry, Deb. These pages, I probably should have a podium here. We have little surpluses that we've used from the water. As you can see, from 53,000 and 14, 0, and you can see all the way down. This year we're anticipating 64,000. And I also did a salary and wage distribution for the water department. Debbie became the CFO last year, Deb? And one of our goals was to have budgets that are based upon actual expenditures. And we've been moving things to make sure that the water department pays all the bills that the water department pays, because you don't want, so we've been moving things around so that we can get a real cost of what each department of the water budget is. So now I think by next year we'll make sure it'll be pretty identified as what gets charged to the right part of the water budget, where it goes. And so I thought it was appropriate that we show you guys how this breaks down. Salary and wages is 28%. We had to pay 3% of the deficit back for last year, the $54,000. Notes, bonds, interest was 12% of the budget. Notes and bonds principal was 24% of the budget. Operating expenses, like what it takes to operate the water department, 13%. Utilities, which fluctuates a little bit, was 9%. Insurance is 4%, and treatment and testing is 7%. And that's what makes up your water budget. So that's also on the agenda for this evening. So, Mayor, if you don't have any questions, I would probably turn it over to Jim if he wanted to make any comments. I don't know if you have any questions for him as well.
Okay, any members of the council have a question for the manager?
The biggest reason for the drop in revenue on the water budget?
The biggest reason for the drop in revenue was a wet year last year, and we didn't sell as much water as we need to. We have really tightened the water system up. We've spent a lot of time working on the water system, bringing it up to standard, fixing tanks, fixing pumps, we spent a lot of money and effort bringing the water system up to standard. But the bottom line is you only sell water when it's not raining every other weekend, and that's what last year was. So we just didn't sell the water. You're going to find that this year the DEP has changed a lot of the rules and regulations, and the rules relative to the budget, relative to running a water system is significantly increased. We have to open and close every valve to ensure that they work and document them every 3 years. We have to, we have to label every hydrant with a brass number on it so that we can identify what the number is. There's a lot more things that the DEP is requiring us to do, and we've been pretty proactive about the testing. We've been pretty proactive about the lead and copper sampling, and we're kind of ahead of the curve on all that. And it's good because it's required now. So the fact that we had to do it a little earlier than everybody else was not a problem because it had to come. But some of your increases are because of some of the new DEP regulations.
And what about when we did the flushing and we had problems with water mains and water mains breaking and stuff like that?
Water main breaks happen all the time. In the winter, it's probably the predominant part. We find that in the 40s and 50s, they may not have been as conscientious about the installation of some of these mains. And some of the ones in Skyline, as an example, are when we dig them up, we find that they're built on top of ledge and built on top of rock. So if you get a pressure jolt, or if you get any type of pressure increase in that area with that type of pipe, you get a longitudinal crack, and we have to replace a large section of the pipe. And that's what's happened 3 or 4 times in Skyline Lakes Drive. But we've been having all over the system where improper installation many years ago has caused some of the issues that we have. We've been working on putting pressure reducing valves everywhere so that we don't get that increase in pressure when the pumps go on or when there's a spike in pressure. That's usually when you find the problem. The only other time that you really have a lot of water main breaks is in the winter when there's freezing and thawing. So.
I know you deployed the leak detection, and
Yep.
you tightened up the system quite a bit. Are we still deploying that? Is there any real need for
We
it?
had
Pretty much covered the whole system so far.
We've had every section. We've had every part of the system covered with the leak detection company. We really tightened up the water because you don't want to lose the water. DEP requires us to account for our lost water every year, so we do that. And they want you to get you down, I think, to a 15% loss ratio for our water. And so what we're doing is we're tightening the system up, and we had the leak detection. We found thousands of gallons that were leaking out through valves, through ties into catch basins, for stuff that didn't come up that were leaking into brooks. And we did that over the last couple of years because there's 2 reasons. One, you don't want to lose water. Water is important. 2, you don't want to have electricity to pump it all over town. If you're losing it at this end of town and you pump it from the southern end of town, well, there's a lot of cost that goes into that. There's man hours that go into that, and there's also chemicals. We treat all the water that we put into the system with chlorine or whatever we might need to, according to each well, you have different treatments according to DEP. That's all money too. So by tightening the system up, you're not losing the water, you're not using the energy to move it around town, you're cutting down on labor, and you're cutting down on chemical costs and wear and tear. So
So with the water budget, the estimated revenue for 2018 is lower than the operating budget.
the estimated revenue for 2018 is lower than the previous year's revenues, because we lost revenue. And we have to also pay back the money that the deficit from last year was also included within this budget.
So is it the money, so it's literally, and I don't have all the backup in front of me, but 1.5 versus 1.4 in
So,
revenue.
so essentially, you can look at the revenue, you can look at the water revenues on this page here, where 2018, we're anticipating 1,459,000 because we did increase the rates a little, so we are allowed to adjust for that. But you can see from 16 to 17, there was a drop in revenue. And we also had expenses that we had to accommodate, that we had to pay the bills. So that's where we ended up with the $54,000 revenue. So the only reason that we can anticipate more is because we increased the rates a month ago. Remember, I came to you guys and I said we need to get a rate increase. And we also increased, not only did we increase the rates a little bit, we increased some of the service costs, hookups, call-outs, that kind of stuff. So that's where they came up with the number. But we're not allowed to arbitrarily pick a number of that we're going to anticipate revenue. So.
Which makes sense. And I'm sure I'm understanding the limitation on like what we're allowed to project forward. So not on the revenue projection, but on the operating expenses, right? Because we're introducing a budget that's larger than the revenue that's coming in.
Correct, because we have anticipated. And some of the costs. So and Chuck could. I'm sorry. Chuck's not here today.
That's gonna happen
Jim
all
could
night.
jump up here and explain it a little bit better because he handles all the utilities.
Your revenues do equal the appropriations. Your revenues are made up of the water rents, miscellaneous revenues, and surplus. The maximum amount of revenues that you can anticipate can't be more than what you realized in cash in the previous year. That's why, you see it down, but since as Scott explained, you did the ordinance that increased the rate, so you're able to do a calculation that you submit to the Division of Local Government Services that shows we anticipate additional water rents of, in this case, it's $68,000, so that we're able to have your revenues equal your appropriations, so it is self-supporting. So the borough's not funding any of it, it's all coming from the users of the system.
The water budget's a separate budget.
So I totally get that, and I
The
get.
total water budget, Ryan, if you actually look in the budget document, I'm not quite sure on Scott's sheets, if it shows everything, that the total anticipated revenue is $1,549,046.03, which is the same amount as the appropriations. The total revenues is on sheet 41, 31, and then the total of the appropriations is on sheet 33. Scott's breakdown there, I don't think on the revenues you showed how much surplus you
We didn't use surplus, it's just actual water
So
revenues.
that's
And we're
what,
taking
that's what's
surplus
the-
to get to the 1.5
Yes,
for the operating
That's what's
budget.
the confusing part of it is, Ryan, yes.
Yeah, we talked about the surplus, how much we're using in the budget in the slide after this, but this slide shows the actual revenue, and this was intended to show the loss or the reduction of revenues from sales of water from last year to this year, and comparable years, 14, 15, and 16.
But your revenues do equal the appropriations, so you have a balanced budget.
And that's surplus just from the water budget.
Correct. There's no mixing between the borough and the water. It's totally self-sufficient because it's a different taxing entity. This is water users, and this is the whole municipality.
That's what I thought the big PowerPoint numbers scared me. Once it's out of Excel.
All right. Jim, can you go over surpluses
We're going to go to the,
and calculation thereof?
The borough's surplus from year to year is made up of various things. Basically, when you put together the budget, you have anticipated revenues. Some of those revenues you'll realize more or less. So if you realize more revenue that's anticipated, that's a good thing. It adds to your surplus. If you have some shortfalls in revenues, that's bad. It takes away. As part of the presentation, Scott had mentioned that in 2016, we had a large amount of miscellaneous revenue not anticipate. That's items of revenue that we don't include in our budget because we're not sure what's going to come in. 2016 was a very large amount. We had $400,000+. Last year it was only $141,000. Again, because it's miscellaneous revenue not anticipated, non-reoccurring, you don't know what's going to happen from year to year. So that goes as a negative against your surplus. The other item, which, I'm not sure of my partner, Mr. Ferrioli, but you have the effects of what the school tax levy has on your surplus. If the school tax levies go up, that increase over the prior year, half of that, because it's on a calendar year, half of it if it goes to your surplus, whatever that increase is. And in 2016, it was approximately $717,000. Last year it was $325,000. So that was $400,000. That was a hit against your surplus last year. Looking at the proposed numbers, or the actual numbers from the certified school tax rates for the 2018-19 school year, it should generate approximately the same exact amount as it did in 2017. So you will not have that big hit against the surplus like we did in 2017. It's going to generate approximately $325,000 like it did in 2017. So that you won't have that as a big hit. So the biggest problem, as Scott was mentioning, facing you is the tax appeals, because if you have to pay out those appeals, they're coming if we have a budget appropriation, they can come out of that, but if they exceed what we have appropriated, that goes against our surplus. So the tax appeals aren't a good thing in two ways, reduces the rateable base, and also it's a hit against your surplus because you have to repay those back out of surplus funds.
Can you go through an explanation also on the cap bank?
Okay, I'm just going to, because I know we have one of the other items on the agenda is the adoption of the COLA index rate ordinance. And I'm just going to briefly touch, you have two caps that the borough has to be compliant with. One's the 2000, I should take that back, the 1977 cap, I'm dating myself when I first started. And that's the cap on expenditures. And then there's the tax levy bank, which is from 2010. That's the cap on your tax levy, what that could go up. When there was years, if you remember, insurance costs were increasing dramatically, garbage disposal costs are increasing dramatically. They started creating all kinds of exceptions to the cap, which at that one point in time was 2.5%. So all of these things, they kept on putting them outside of your expenditures. So what they did is to clean everything up, they moved all of those expenditures, whatever they were, back inside the appropriation subject to the cap limit, and tried to make the only exceptions to be for your debt service, capital expenditures, grants, and I guess libraries, certain things. And when they did that, they created what they call a COLA index rate ordinance. And what it allows you to do is every year they set the index rate. It could be anywhere from 0%. It could go all the way up to 3.5%. But what the law allows you to do by doing this ordinance is, if this, just to say this year the COLA index rate is 2.5%, okay, we could go up to 3.5%.
The COLA is cost of living, just for the
Right,
record.
and it's set by, it may not be the regular COLA that you see for other things, but they have it, the implicit price deflator, et cetera. And what we do is recommend to our clients, it's a good planning tool, okay, whether you need it or not. As you saw from the presentation, you're over $1 million underneath that spending cap. But what the law allows you to do is, whether you need it or not, it allows you to set aside that as what you call a cap bank. You're allowed to keep it for up to 3 years, and you don't use it, you lose it. And it's there just in case, like you say, there's a crisis again in some, industry, what have you. You have the years where we had 0%, 0.5%, 1% increase in index rate. Well, if your regular employee expenses, everything else is going up by greater, at least that gave you the mechanism. And you may not have used that over the past 5 years when that happened, but it gives you the mechanism if you ever need it. This year, it added $130,000 to what you could actually go up to. You're not using that at all, but it's there in case something comes up. And that's what I said, it's just a good planning tool we always recommend to our clients. And as a side note, you have the tax levy cap, which does have exceptions, is at 2%. So if you go up to your 2% tax levy cap, you can't even touch that other money even if you wanted to. So when that law was enacted, it had more teeth in it than the spending one, because the spending one just had so many exceptions and got convoluted over the year. But some municipalities, they need it, and others don't, just because of where they were when the laws went into effect. They were growing towns, and they weren't being able to provide the services. Here, you've been a little bit more established now that you're restricted. So I don't know if that explains it or not, but
We haven't used the cap bank, Deputy Mayor, since I've been here. I think the last time you applied to use the cap bank was in 2006.
But like I said, it's a good planning tool to have in case you ever need it. So, because if there's a year, like I say, that, and I'll just say, not last year before, the index rate was 0%. So if you had no cap bank and your expenses subject to that went up greater than 1%, you really have to find some place to come back to get in. And there's, again, other add-ons to that, debt service, capital, et cetera, expenditures.
So Mayor, if there are no more questions,
What, viewpoint on bonding?
And I'm not quite sure as far as what on bonding, I guess if you can be pay-as-you-go for certain things, our recommendation is if you need to do capital projects that are going to have a useful life greater than 10 years, because you're benefiting future taxpayers and not the ones right now, then that suggestion is to, if you need to do a bond ordinance, suspend that. If you're buying DPW trucks, equipment, SUVs, those items have a short life of approximately 5 years in the bond years. That we recommend, if you can afford to do it, do that as pay-as-you-go for any capital projects that have a useful life less than 5 years, to try to, if you can, include them in your regular pay-as-you-go part of your budget. I'm not quite sure if that's what you're referring to.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Cerullo? Mr. Heck? Okay, so what is next? Is ordinance number 2018-03?
2018-03 is the calendar for 2018 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limit and establish a cap bank. That's what Jim was just talking about. And this isn't really cash per se, but this is giving you the ability to, in the future, over the next 3 years, to go beyond what the ordinary cap would allow you to do according to the DCA.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Oh, we have to have
Oh,
a
wait,
public
sorry.
hearing. Public hearing? Open to the public.
Okay,
Mr. Klimek should read it by title.
yeah, right, we go read it by title? Yeah, we kind of got
Well,
out of...
Scott did
out of
read it
order.
by title.
Scott read it by title.
Okay?
Because I was
So-
told
If I hear it out of my
All right.
left ear, then I know that we go to
All
public,
right.
and then we come back down.
Okay. Ordinance 2018-03, calendar year, I'm just repeating what Scott said, 2018. Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limit and to establish a cap bank in accordance with 48:4-45.14. Okay? The matter can now be open to the public.
Okay, ordinance number 2018-03 regarding the cap bank for calendar year 2018 is now open to the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak on the matter, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Seeing no one, move to close?
Second.
Kelly, give a roll call on closing public.
Sure. Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes?
Davison?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mayor Spear?
Yes.
Okay, I'll recite a resolution. Resolve that ordinance number 2018-03 as read by title is hereby adopted and the municipal clerk is hereby authorized to publish notice of passage of same in the official newspaper of the municipality.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes?
Davison?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe? Mayor Spear?
Yes.
Mayor, resolution,
Resolution.
yes, Resolution 2018-111 is the Borough of Ringwood self-examination of the budget resolution.
Your motion, to get it on the table, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Does anybody want to give us a motion for 2018-111?
I'll move it.
Mr. Noonan? Mr. Martucci?
Second.
Second, Mr. Noonan.
Can we have an explanation?
Want me to give that, Scott?
Sure.
Mr. Rule, if you would, yes.
The state of New Jersey, Division of Local Government Services, I guess about 10 or so years ago, when they had reduction in staffing, they couldn't look at every single budget in the state of New Jersey. So what they instituted was a rolling cycle. Every 3 years, your budget would get examined by the state. They sign your local group number. So once every 3 years, they go through it and give their blessing. This resolution, if you meet a whole listing of criteria, which the borough does, there's approximately 10 criteria, I'm not going to go through them all, then for 2 out of 3 years, you're able to do the self-examination of the budget. And this resolution is you acknowledging it, that you met all the requirements, and then your CFO has to sign a certification also that the budget that you're adopting meets all the requirements.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, council members? The roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Ferretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mayor Spear?
Yes. Okay. And next is our resolution adopting the budget.
Yeah, this is resolution number 2018-112. This is be it resolved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Ringwood, County of Passaic. The budget herein is set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated in the sums as listed on page 41 in the total of $15,964,620.21.
The public hearing before any motion, okay?
Okay, the 2018 municipal budget of the Borough of Ringwood is now open to the public for discussion. Anybody wishing to discuss said budget, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Paul Rumaki, 99 Edward Drive. Just a quick question on the tax appeals. The reservoir got a lot of press. It appears the numbers for the 2 shopping centers seem to be of the same magnitude. Is that correct?
Remember, this is the first year of the 3-year reduction for the reservoir.
Okay, but so that's the first third.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So the thing is that, so the appeal for the 2 shopping centers is 2/3. So basically, what we're losing on the reservoir, eventually we're losing 60% more for the 2 shopping centers.
In
Any
addition.
color on why they why their appeals were successful?
I would have to yield to Mr. Klimek
Well,
on that.
that would be a long explanation. It was discussed in executive session. There were assessors' reports.
They're just
There were
claiming lower
numerous-
valuation.
There was discussions for years with the reservoir. It ultimately.
No, not the reservoir, the shopping centers.
Oh, almost the same thing. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Claiming
It was
lower
the same- It
values.
was the same thing. There were assessors' reports, there were examinations, there were appraisals, and the assessor, viewing everything and viewing the economic situation here, came to the conclusion that the assessment should be reduced.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, misunderstood you.
We need the budget in this town for open space, farming, historic society, and Passaic County farmland, and farmland and open space budget too, and all the counties in New Jersey also, for all the agencies in New Jersey.
Thanks, Mark.
Steve Michelin, 29 Wellback Terrace in beautiful Ringwood, New Jersey. Listening to the bit gloomy budget projections for income for the town, revenue, and I read something, I'm sure I don't have the full story. but I'm hoping you can explain to me and to other people who may not have heard the full story. I had read that we are offering, in the face of declining revenues, we are offering retiring employees 2 years of free health care. Again, I'm sure I don't have the full story. Maybe you can help me understand. Less money coming in, there's got to be a financial reason to do that.
Yes.
That's my question, please.
Zach, you want
Sure.
to, pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward. There are some individuals that we provided an incentive to, for them to retire by July 1st, and those positions will not be replaced. It was far cheaper to give them the incentive if they were close to getting to Medicare or whatever the case may be, although we offered it to everybody, as long as they retired by a certain point. We are going to extend one of them because we need them, because a couple people in that department left. But the savings is significant. If you have somebody that makes $110,000 a year and you're going to replace them with a part-time person or a shared service, and their health care is $12,000, it's a no-brainer if they're going to hang on. So it made financial sense to do that.
Okay, I guess having worked in the private sector, when a company does that, they just have layoffs. They don't offer incentives to people, but I guess there's municipalities working for the government, it's different?
You can do layoffs as well, and that could be round two. That doesn't mean that listen, there's a budget crisis going on. We figured we would give some incentives for people to go. Layoff is not necessarily as easy. Layoffs, there's a process that you have to go through. We are a civil service town, and generally speaking, when you go through a layoff, some of the litigation costs involved are extensive.
Okay.
So, without going into too much details, because some of this stuff is personnel matters, it made a lot of sense, and I don't think you're necessarily going to see that it ends there. But we did get some individuals who are leaving that they're taking advantage of it, and it's helping this budget out.
Okay, again, I figured I didn't have the full story. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the newspaper reported on it after a discussion here before we even offered it. It's just the way the newspapers go. Good, thank God for that YouTube and live stream.
Venkatal, 24 Highpoint Lane. What percentage is the debt service in the municipal budget? Because I wish we had a copy of the budget. I mean, I went back there to look for it in there, and it's not in the book. So, and it's hard to remember what you showed here, but I seem to remember that, so the water budget is $1.5 million. Am I right? Something like that?
Approximately.
Approximately. And the debt service is 36% on the interest and the bonds. I mean, you could go back on that PowerPoint. And the salaries are 28%?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a lot. What is the percentage of debt service in the municipal budget?
I would have to calculate it. How much? 6%?
About 6%.
About 6%.
Average
6%?
of the budget.
And what, also, what is the cost for the garbage pickup this year?
The contract ends the end of
The contract ends at the end of the year. We're out to bid for a new one. I mean, I'd have to pull it out. I could certainly get you that information.
It's like $1 million or
Approximately
something
$1 million.
like that? Yeah. So now the taxpayers pay for garbage pickup in the industrial area?
Pay for garbage pickup for every taxpayer in town.
Wait a minute. The taxpayer, who pays for the pickup of the garbage in the industrial area?
The garbage contract is for every taxpayer in town. So
Right.
Everybody. So the taxpayers pay.
Okay, yeah, but do the people that run the properties pay?
Well, they pay
Yeah,
taxes,
yeah.
so yes.
So because I thought that there was like an incentive years ago to pick up garbage there.
No incentive.
At no cost to them?
It's in your
No.
tax base. It's
Okay.
Their taxes help to pay for their own garbage, just like your taxes pay for your garbage.
So my other question is on the bonding. We seem to be doing a lot of bonding, and I thought it was for really capital improvements that would last 10 years or so.
It's a diverse group. I mean, the auditor, the bond counsel determines the effective life of whatever you're bonding.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So at what point are you going to be able to wean yourself off bonding for paving roads, which used to be pay-as-you-go?
Raise taxes.
We used to pay as you go all the time, and unfortunately, with some of the changes in finances and some of the changes in the government, some of the programs that we used to have, we could no longer have. You used to be penalized a little bit if, in fact, you kept more surplus. When over the last 8 years, some of the rules changed, and it was no longer advantageous for us to bond. There's also a different philosophy. Some people want to do as pay as you go. Some people say, hey, listen, if you're going to be putting a road in that you're going to be paying for the next 20 years, why should I be paying for cash to fix it now when I'm not going to be here? So the people who are actually using the services and using the roads are paying for the road. So it's just a different philosophy.
Thanks.
I don't know why it keeps cutting out.
What's the matter?
Keeps cutting out. I don't know why. Doing the best I can.
Quick question on the, that we're in the Highlands Act. What kind of impact would you say that's had on, I know it's like a tough question to answer, but.
It's not really tough.
So over the course of the past, say, how long have we been in there? 10 years or close to 10 years? And so up to this point, how much potential revenues have maybe we lost? And then going forward, say 10 years from now, what kind of negative impact has that had on us?
I can't tell you the actual dollar amount that it would have affected us, but let's be honest. The industrial park is gone because of the Highlands. The reservoirs tax appeals because their property isn't worth as much. The shopping centers because their property isn't worth as much. So the reality is we all want clean water. And if you're asking me from a purely financial perspective, it's had a significant impact on our budget over the years because we haven't had the opportunity to develop those parcels. Significant dollar amounts come from some of these commercial properties, and they don't send children to school, and they don't send, they don't have much services. I mean, so when you diminish those commercial properties that pay the same that everybody else does, and if on a ratio basis, it affects the budget. And because they don't have services, and they don't have school children, and they don't have all the same things that are residential recreation programs and all that stuff. They don't use any of that, and yet they still pay the same basic rate. So from a purely borough perspective, from a finances, it has had a negative impact on us.
I think it's been part of every tax appeal, every commercial, industrial, or even the reservoirs tax appeal have all referenced the loss of value due to the Highlands Act as part of one of the reasons for coming to us for a tax appeal.
And
they have no emotional or psychic, emotional attachment or psychic gift or benefit from the Highlands Act. They just see it as a strictly dollars and cents kind of thing. They say they lose.
Especially from a commercial perspective and an industrial perspective. We mentioned group homes earlier today, and that would be a positive thing for the community. It might be a way to help with our low and moderate. The impact to the police department and the ambulance corps for some of these group homes is significant to the point where it's at times absurd. So there's huge costs, and the chief wrestles with this all the time. As a matter of fact, I looked at an ordinance that I had Kelly get from Tom's River because they're having the same type of problems with some of these so-called good ratables that turn out to be not so good with some of the impact on services. And so to answer your question, from a financial point of view, it has hurt us.
So going forward, next year, year after, our costs are going to continue to rise, and our revenues are the potential for growth in revenue are 0 to 5%. I mean, if that.
I can't answer that, but.
So
it's hard to see where additional tax ratables come in. It is hard to see it. If we're taking out the Skyline Drive corridor, it is very difficult to see where ratables are going to keep pace with the costs, with the expenses. Just with the health insurance for the employees, or just with the pension payments for the employees and former employees. It's hard to see. It was described as a death spiral in 2004. They told us that it's a death spiral. Your costs are gonna grow, and your rateable base is gonna shrink. And we're seeing it. We've actually delayed it pretty well. You know, we've had a bunch of good years running very tight budgets. They've caught up on us now. Now we're seeing a real shrinking in our surplus, and the prognosis is not that cheery. So,
For the last several,
we keep working.
for the last several years, I've talked about, look, we can cut the budget forever, but if we don't do something to increase our commercial base in some capacity, we're going to be balancing the budgets on the backs of all the residents in town. There's just no other way around it. If you're shrinking your commercial and your industrial, the costs are going up. And if you're losing those properties to open space and to, whatever the case may be, well, that burden gets shifted to all of the residents and the taxpayers. So.
Right, so at this
a
point,
fact
we're
of
like
life.
in damage control as how slow we could keep the rise in taxes.
Yes. Yeah, I'd characterize it that way. Yeah.
Thanks.
Seeing no one. That's my man. Motion to close public for Ms. Martucci, Mr. Noonan. Roll call on closing public, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Ferretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Okay.
Any council discussion? Do we have a motion and a second on the budget?
No, you do not.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the 2018 budget.
Moved.
Thank you. We'll have a discussion after we have it opened and seconded, then we can discuss, then we, Mr. Noonan moves. Mr. Martucci seconds. Any discussion on the budget?
So I do want to say, I know that nobody likes to raise taxes, nobody likes to pay them. I definitely don't like to pay them. Don't like to propose raising them. And I will say that this was not the starting assumption. Within the Budget Committee, we actually, and they didn't kill us, but we asked Debbie and Scott to actually put together a 0% budget. What do those numbers look like? What does the town look like? What kind of picture does that paint for us? And they were very good and very patient, and they humored us, and they ran numbers across different scenarios. And it was not a good picture in terms of the cuts to services and staff that would be required. And that's the starting point of how we got to the budget that we're talking about tonight. And I don't want anybody to think that we didn't look at what we could possibly do to keep taxes flat, because we did. And we don't think that people would have been particularly happy with that scenario either.
I want to thank the Budget Committee. I think they did a lot of hard work on this budget. I think they were very cost conscious. I know it took a lot of hours to go over all those numbers. Not my favorite thing to do. So I applaud you and I thank you for doing so. I know that we've had a decrease in the town's revenue from the New Jersey and also the commercial properties that have been looking for appeals. I also want to thank our town manager for setting up a meeting with our auditor. That was a real eye-opener to me. What I didn't know was that there was, the last meeting, we talked about a tax bill for water to help alleviate our costs up here in the Highlands. And what I found at this meeting was there was actually a bill to do that sitting on Governor Chris Christie's desk, and he vetoed it. That was something I wasn't aware of at the time that it was vetoed, but it was something that I did learn from our auditor, and I thank you for that. The other thing that I was really surprised to learn was that the Highlands had money available for ecotourism. And again, our governor, Chris Christie, took that money away. So here we are in the Highlands looking at the situation that we just described, and we're not being given the support that we need. Now, it did get through the state legislature the last time, and it made it to the governor's desk. I would say that it would be important for us to lobby our state legislators to get it back. We have a new governor. Perhaps this time that bill would be signed and we could have some relief up here in the Highlands, because we do face strenuous circumstances. You know, we all knew about Bridgegate. We all knew that our state parks were closed down, but I had no idea how close to home it hit when he vetoed that tax bill for the water and also removing money that we could have used for ecotourism to build ratables in this town, because that is an avenue that we need to explore since we do have these limitations. So I want to thank everybody for their work, but I also want to look at different ways that we can offset having an increase to home taxes. This is a really hard time for the state of New Jersey to take a hit like this because of what has happened at the federal level and the fact that we are no longer allowed to deduct our property taxes if they're over $10,000. This has hurt every homeowner in the state, and I think Venkatol brought up a good point about the industrial area and the commercial areas with garbage pickup. After we had that discussion at the last meeting, I looked into neighboring towns, and they require that their industrial areas do take care of their own waste. And Oakland was one example. And I think if we asked, I mean, we have to say that an industrial area is going to create a lot more waste than my household. And therefore, asking them to take on that, especially when they're asking for a decrease in their, tax appeals, to take care of that on their own would maybe help offset a large increase to our homeowners who are really under a strain in these difficult times with tax increases. So thank you.
I'm surprised you said that about Chrissy, because we were part of a coalition, West Milford, Jefferson Township, and for several years, we worked on a water tax.
Right.
Okay, and the legislature said they were not interested in pursuing that. We had, so I'm surprised you even hear a bill went through, because we were told that, forget about it, the legislature at all did not have any interest in pushing any sort of water tax. And West Milford could tell you, what was it? I forget the name of the coalition we're on, but
I forget the name. Pardon me?
Princeton.
Yeah, the Princeton group represented us, I think, actually.
That was a lobbying group.
The lobbying
Yes.
group that was lobbying. There was a group of the Highlands, the Highlands towns that joined to try and have this lobbying firm who was trying to help get a water tax. I think what Councilman's referring to is many years ago when the Highlands bill was enacted, there was a little bit of funding that was available, and we used to get a letter that would say that this is, and this was, I think this was before the last 8 years. I think it was even before that, but we would get a letter that would say, here's your funding formula based upon the Highlands Act. However, there's no money in there, therefore you're not getting it. There's no appropriation for it, so you're not getting that check. So I think what she's referring to is that actual tax from the original bill. But it is correct. We used to get these letters that says this is how much you would have gotten had there been appropriations for it. So I have spent the last 3 years trying to find other ways to get funding. As a matter of fact, when I found out about the monetary offset water tax, I sent letters to every legislator for everybody who receives water from the reservoir, because it was in their best interest. Listen, if you want us to keep the water clean in perpetuity, you should pay for it in perpetuity. And so I sent them all letters. I sent a DCA letter and asked for an application. How do I apply this money? Because I have the list of every town and how much they get for the last 10 years from that fund. And after much prodding, finally the DCA said, listen, there is no such thing as an application. We don't have an application for you. That takes an act of legislation to change it. I said, well, you told me I needed to file an application. She said, but we don't have one. I said, well, that's insane. That's just insane. So I then sent letters to every legislator, which I provide. I talked to Ryan about this, or excuse me, Councilman Bolton about this. And because, listen, that if there's towns that are getting funding for this that have no right to be getting funding, and when we're
Patterson gets money for that.
Patterson, yeah, Wayne, it's very eye-opening. And when you see this, you say to yourself, there's something wrong here. We provide water to a large portion of the state. How are we not on this list? West Milford gets 757,000.
Yes.
So, having said all of that, there are some things that we've been doing over the last bunch of years, which we've talked about here, and we'll continue to. And hopefully, if any of this stuff would help, it would certainly positively affect this budget. And you would probably make different decisions if you had a source of revenue that was taken away from us from the potential that we used to have. So.
Well, that bill that Mr. Ferrioli referred to at the meeting that we had regarding the water tax that supposedly was sitting on Chris Christie's desk, could we get a copy of that?
I could ask him. I don't know what bill he was referring to. He didn't tell me what bill, but.
I would like to see a copy of it if possible.
Is the infrastructure surcharge?
An
is the way it was
infrastructure
framed.
surcharge. Okay, well, then I would like to take a look.
But I don't think it went. I think it was discussed, but I don't know that it ever got that far. But there was actually a bill that should have been paid that none of the last governors have paid, and that we know for a fact. And
I'd like to see a copy too.
so I'll ask Mr. Ferriolo if he can provide what he was talking about.
Just my final comment is, we can all have a different point of view, have a side that we believe in, but as elected officials, part of our job is to run the town of Ringwood, do what's best for the citizens, and do what's best for the next 10 years down the road. We're gonna need to resolve the revenue side, because between the taxes that we're losing, the appeals they're going through, okay, we can continue to raise taxes. You can continue to cut staff, but then it becomes a perpetual cycle to the point where you might have people, well, you do have people move now because of taxes. So it's up to us to get our heads together and discuss what we think is best for Ringwood. I can't tell you what that is right now. The redevelopment is a possibility, because embedded in that, we have a couple other things that are facing the town budget-wise. We have a James Drive sewage treatment plant that is really old. We have two other small treatment plants over by the ambulance, the CVS. And we have the Fieldstone treatment plant that every time you go to the post office, you get this whiff. So I'm not sure how they built that, but, and the James Drive treatment plant definitely is gonna need something done, and that's gonna cost money. So we have to kind of come up with ways that's gonna be able to work, generate some revenue, and allow us to leave the town in the hands of following council people in some sort of a decent status. So that's all I gotta say.
There's over 4 million people that benefit from the water that comes out of these reservoirs. And at the end of the appeal, it's going to be slightly around $2 million in revenue we gain from the taxes from it annually. 4 million people paying $2 million for the water. As far as water tax, anything that goes through Trenton, I'd be cautioned about.
Thank you.
Every dollar we send back there, we get about 12 cents back on them.
Something like that,
So
yeah.
I would rather come up with a different method to raise the revenue than trying to send something to Trenton and then beg to get that money back from them. They have a way of taking a huge vig off the top.
Money is like ice. Everybody who touches it, you lose some.
Well, I mean,
Exactly. We don't need another layer of administration and another committee down there or another office to administer. We can do much more efficiently up here.
yeah, but sometimes the squeaky wheel gets attention.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on this,
I
right?
do.
So it's time for a roll call.
Sure.
Say.
This is for the adoption of the 2018 municipal budget. Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Ferretti?
No.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Council members Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
No.
Mayor Spear?
Yes. If we could, just tell me why you voted no.
Vote no. I vote no to raising Ringwood's taxes, and there are a number of reasons for that. I don't think it's justified to raise taxes as much as we are. I feel as though I want to be more involved in details. I should be on this committee. After feeling like I wasn't as much part of the process as I should have been, and that way I can justify what I'm saying, but we need to think more outside of the box. Similarly to the affordable housing thing, because we're in the Highlands situation. And we need to incrementally raise the taxes. You see the taxes on the history, they go up $20, they go up 151, or whatever the numbers are, I don't have them memorized, but it's too much up and down. All of a sudden, you have taxes going up $150. I think we could plan more to incrementally raise the taxes, $20, $40, $70. It's a big hit all of a sudden. I don't see it justified. I understand the taxes, appeals and everything that we've discussed, but I don't know. I feel like we can't use the Highlands Act as a crutch to complain and blame the tax situations. We have to work around the situation to maintain the taxes. This is what we're elected to do. And one of the things we've been elected to do. I don't have a clear-cut answer, but for example, James Drive and their sewage situation, they don't contribute towards when I need a new septic system. Okay, so that's just one of many things I have concerns about. When a water main breaks, who brings the backhoe in?
Water
The
department.
water department has their own backhoe? Or do we potentially they pay us for borrowing the backhoe? Like, these details I'd like to see more about. I can't, the average of around $70 tax increase, I really question if we could have made that less. I'd like to see, of course, the taxes not go up. So, my vote is no to raising the taxes,
But
an
we've had-
average of over $69.
But we've had weeks, months, that we had copies of budget, and you had chances to ask questions.
See, I don't have the answers to fixing it.
No, but you had opportunities to ask questions, and to say no because you don't understand certain things. I mean, you can ask Ryan, he was on the committee. Called me, called Scott.
I think I laid out why I didn't think it was necessary to raise it. I think we should look at having the industrial area pay for their own garbage removal. I think that we should look, as Councilman Ferretti said, other avenues of revenue instead of just bashing the Highlands Act.
Okay.
At this time, I think the residents of our town can ill afford a tax increase.
I agree.
Okay.
I need desperately for somebody to not say other sources of revenue, but to get into like the specifics.
Exactly.
To actually point out what we can do.
I agree.
I need, and I would really hope to have it from somebody who thinks that these things exist.
Well, one
Because
of-
it's been kind of beaten out of me over the past 10 years. I've given up the pipe dream. Also, ecotourism. Okay, I've heard this thing. It's like a little snake charming type of thing, and they say ecotourism, and it's all going to be good. I got to see how you monetize this stuff. Please, please come forth. I mean, we're always accepting ideas here. Somebody, please.
I
Tell me
agree.
how you monetize and get a tax base out of ecotourism. Please tell me what other sources of revenue are available for our town. We will do anything we can to find it and make it happen if you can show me something that's remotely feasible. Just remotely feasible. But don't say we should look for other things. No, guys, we are looking for other things. Nothing's showing up. If you have a suggestion, I'm listening.
I have a suggestion
Awesome.
then. I'm glad you're listening. I would like to say that I think it's important that we revitalize our Economic Advisory Committee that has the commission, that has been out of commission for the last 10 years. There is only so many hours in a day where we can explore these avenues. We all work full-time jobs, and we haven't the time to really delve into this. But if we had a good economic commission working in this town, I think we should work with them to find the solutions that we're seeking. So I would like to recommend that we do this immediately. I have spoken to very concerned individuals in the community who would like to be part of an economic commission and seeking opportunities to work, to your point. Some of the things that we can look at for ecotourism, this is a great place for people to come and explore our historical sites, our hiking trails, our biking trails. We have paddleboarding, we have lakes, we have swimming, we have so many things here. Airbnbs are one way that we can help our seniors offset their taxes and also help improve their homes, which would improve the value of their home and increase our tax base. So I think there's lots of avenues that we haven't had an opportunity to explore, and I think the first step in doing that is bringing back our Economic Advisory Commission, and I would like to propose that we do so.
You have a mission for this economic advisory, is it
Well,
Economic Advisory Commission?
The
Because
other,
we had an Economic Development Commission. I think there was actually a fund of some kind of federal grant money it was a revolving loan fund that they were doing for brick and mortar, building improvements and construction projects. And that's what they formerly were, and that stuff kind of, that kind of just withered on the vine. We would have to like put together a mission for them. We want them to,
why don't we take a
why can't
look at what we
wait a
have
second.
today?
Why can't we as kind of cognizant adults here, kind of talk through a little further what we're talking about here? How do I get money out of a hiker?
If
They
people
won't
come to
stop.
visit instead.
The reservoir charges for permits.
They spend money in the stores.
They get money out of hikers. They charge for permits to hike their land.
some money out of the quarry?
Our audience seems to have a lot of suggestion. Maybe
Yeah, I know.
community involvement, maybe
it's a peanut
community
gallery. What good is that?
involvement is one of the things that we need to explore.
Is what?
Community involvement in these solutions, like the Downtown Redevelopment Committee that I'm on. I was told I was on it in January. We haven't had one meeting.
No.
No, and this is something that we should be looking into. I agree with you. Our downtown needs our attention. It isn't what it should be. It isn't what it was when I moved here. And I think that it needs to be revitalized. So therefore, I'd like to see this committee
If you
get up and running.
keep track of the news, okay, there was a whole thing on the news the other night, from New York, Soho, to local towns in New Jersey, how all their retail stores are becoming empty. It's not just a River problem. It's New Jersey and New York-wide problem, and they're trying to figure out how to do it. My suggestion, first of all, is before we even get to any of that, is council communication. Because I have received one question, okay, regarding the budget. Anybody that was not sure of something, I haven't received a question. Somebody was unhappy with the way we're going towards the tax increase, have not received a question, an email. So if we can, as a council, have a discussion because you're not asking questions, then we can't have a discussion on anything else. I mean, if you had felt strongly about the tax increase, we've had plenty of time to discuss it or meet and talk about it. And Ryan has spent plenty of time at the meetings going through different phases, okay? So I just would like to say that I continue to be disappointed in the lack of communication. And it's got to be better, because everything we've talked about tonight can't happen if we're not working together. And it's great to speak your mind at the council meetings, but we work together as a council. So if you're not talking to us, or me, or whatever, I have no idea what's on your mind. So, I mean, it's great to vote no, but if we had discussion before this, and you had different things that you were concerned about, it would be nice at least to know. So, and I think before we get to anything else, we have to work together as a council. We could disagree, but we still got to communicate.
Mayor, to put it into perspective, to get to a 0% budget, I believe you needed to cut an extra $370,000. Tell me how anything that's proposed here that would cut $370,000 to get to a 0% budget. The industrial garbage isn't going to do that. The commercial garbage isn't going to do that. $370,000 to get to zero, and Ryan knows the numbers. We went through painstaking hours and hours and hours to come up with this increase, and as you know, we haven't had an increase like this in a while. But to say that we're spending money frivolously or carelessly is incorrect. We really look really closely at it, and when the water department uses DPW equipment, we back charge it. We don't. When somebody hits a sign on the side of the road, we bill it. We look for every source of revenue that we can look for. So some of these things that you're talking about are things that you may be able to change down the road, but you still have to fund the operation. You still have to collect the taxes. You still have to pay for the school buses. Because remember, we pay to pick up the school children that are beyond the miles. We still have to have the police department. We still have to have the fire department. We still have to have the gas. So if there was a way that we could have cut that $370,000, I'm sure this committee and myself and Debbie would have done that. But to put it all into perspective, that's what you're talking about.
Interestingly enough, as a member of the Ringwood Chamber of Commerce, they are wrestling with the exact same, ideas and struggles, because if they, you have some very motivated, very great people that already are current business owners, past business owners in the Chamber of Commerce, and what do? They want to want to bring more people in to enhance their own businesses, and they've looked at ecotourism and everything else. And I've been a member for 6 years, and it's been a struggle, and talked about it every single chamber meeting, and I haven't seen a whole lot change about it, so.
No. It's not a useful idea to say we need new ideas. It's just that these things are very difficult. The business model of the borough is pretty simple. We have a suite of services we offer. We tax the improvements on real property and real property. That's pretty much it. We make money from taxes. We pay for, the services you see are the services, that's what we provide. And it's very, very, doing something other than that really needs to be kind of fleshed out. We might think we might have some ideas, but we need something concrete to move on, because we're running out of time. Let's continue with the agenda. Resolutions and a bill list. And Jim, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, Mayor, Resolution 2018-113, whereas the Chief Financial Officer has certified that funds are available for the payment of the current bill list in the amount of $380,939.84, supplemental payments in the amount of $10,259,544.12, merchant service fees in the amount of $126.64, Slapoa Dam Assessment Fund in the amount of $43,178.60, to the listed accounts for a total of $10,683,789.20. Of that, it's a rather large list, which I guess we should pay. The pension is $1,036,657.86. The Board of Education is getting $1,889,344, and the other $6,057,302 is rollover of bond anticipation notes, which you all approved at the last meeting.
Hey, Scott?
Yes.
The one thing listed on, I don't know, page 10, the DPS pump service. Was that rehab?
No, DPS pump service, I'll have to look at it, but
It's charged to the Brookside well?
yeah, DPS pump service, we had a well that was, that we had to pull the pump and rebuild the whole pump. I think that was back in November of last year. But DPS, it's probably $9,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
That's for a pump and a motor for pulling that and rebuilding the Brookside pump.
Get the maximum potential from that
No,
well?
it was, it had outlived its useful life, not planned.
No, okay.
And on the first page, the TWR as CUST Uberry Fund for 17,000, what is?
Those are tax, lien redemptions for the taxes.
They're lien redemptions?
All the,
Okay.
all the top of those things are all
all
lien
lien holders.
redemptions.
Okay,
Lien holders.
thank you.
We had to pay them back.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
You have nothing.
We want a motion on the bill list, 2018-113.
Got it.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan. Second, Mr. Bolton. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe? Mayor Spear?
Yes.
Resolution 2018-114, whereas a contract was awarded to D.R. Mullen Construction Company for the construction of the Cupsaw Drive Improvement Project Phases 6 and 7, contract number 2017-2, on July 18, 2017, in the amount of $411,926.35. And whereas the Borough Engineer has submitted change order number 1 final in the amount of $6,299.24 due to the as-built quantities, including the asphalt adjustment that were constructed to complete the project. Whereas a change order number 1 final decreases the contract amount from $411,926.35 to $400,627.11, or a decrease of 1.53% of the original contract amount. Whereas Schwanweed Halls Engineering has submitted and the Borough Engineer has reviewed and recommends the current estimate number 6 final in the amount of $8,112.54 for the work performed in this project. Now therefore be it resolved by the Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood hereby approves change order number 1 final in the amount of $6,299.24. Current estimate number 6 in the amount of $8,112.54 to D.R. Mullen Construction Company of Oakland, New Jersey. Be it further resolved, the payment is made subject to the receipt of the New Jersey monthly manning reports, the certified payroll records, and the required 1-year maintenance bond as required by the contract specifications.
That finishes this project.
Finishes this project. And he's already done some repairs for things that we had to fix.
Get some punch list stuff up, ready?
Yeah.
Excellent. Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Martucci?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ferretti. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mayor Spear?
Yes.
2018-115, be it resolved, the Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood hereby approve the discharge of fireworks at Shepherd's Lake for September 8th, 2018, with a rain date of September 9th, 2018 for the borough-sponsored event.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mayor Spear?
Yes.
2018-116, be it resolved, the Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood hereby authorizes the execution of a professional service agreement with CME Engineering LP for the fee schedule attached for the purposes of providing engineering services regarding the quarry.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Any discussion?
So this is the firm that does all of the inspections?
Yes.
right, And reviews all the plans?
Yes.
And they make recommendations to this council based on their findings?
Yes.
He's out in
And have we-
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, have we partnered with them before?
Yes, yes. Used him years and years ago, and started using him again, just want to say 6 or 7 years ago, picked him back up. He's fantastic. They actually do
Okay.
mining in Pennsylvania. You know, so a mining engineer in Pennsylvania is actually a guy who does mining for a living, as opposed to New Jersey, guys can do earthwork and they can do scuff, but, you know, they can go all around it, but he actually understands mining. So it's a useful thing, and all the parts of mining, you know, blasting, crushing, that sort of stuff. He's a wealth of information.
10 years, Mayor.
It's been 10 years? Great. Do we have the motion in a second?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe? Mayor Spear?
Yes.
Since you're taking notes, you want me to do the consent, or?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's fine.
Our recorder is not working.
Going old school.
We're doing old school. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you'll have to be patient while she reads and take notes.
No, it's okay. I'm okay. Whereas the Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions, now therefore be it resolved that the following resolutions on the consent agenda are hereby approved. 2018-117, approval of consent. 2018-118, authorized redemption tax sale certificate various. 2018-119, appointment of Edward Landis as regular member of the Recreation Commission to fill an unexpired term. And 2018-120, authorized increase in cash draw for municipal court.
I'll move it.
Motion, Mr. Martucci.
Second?
Second, Mr. Bolton. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mayor Spear?
Yes. Next on the agenda is the manager's report. Haven't you done enough?
I've done enough damage for one night, but I have two more things, Mr. Mayor. First of all, the Memorial Day ceremony is Tuesday, May 22nd, 7 p.m. at Borough Hall, outside by the gazebo, Kelly?
Correct.
And I have a resolution to offer for all of you this evening. Do you have a number, Kel?
Sure, it's going to be 122.
122. Resolution number 2018-122, whereas a grant was applied for with the Passaic County Open Space, Farmland, and Historic Preservation Fund for the turf field at Hughes School. Due to the NJDEP constraints, the borough was unable to acquire the necessary permits to install a turf field in this facility. And whereas the borough then applied for a grant with the Passaic County Open Space, Farmland, and Historic Preservation Fund for year 2018 for the Stonetown Ball Field. Upon discussion with the Passaic County Open Space, the borough was advised that in order to be eligible for the grant for the Stonetown Ball Field, they would require the borough to withdraw the previous grant application for Hewitt School, as we couldn't effectuate the change. And whereas the borough is agreeable to the withdrawal of the previous application with the understanding that the open space funds for Hewitt School will now be available and can be applied to the Stonetown Ball Field project. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council hereby authorizes the borough manager to send a letter to Passaic County Open Space, Farmland, and Historic Preservation Trust Fund, withdrawing the previous grant application for Hewitt School and requesting those funds be applied to the Stonetown Ball Field project. I don't have the authority to withdraw a grant that was provided to us previously. That's something that the council would have to do.
Okay, what was the total amount of Passaic County open space grants we got from?
I think we have, it's approximately,
Hewitt?
I think it's approximately $500,000.
Somewhere in that vicinity, right?
We have approximately $900,000 reserved for it. I don't have all the
Right.
specifics in front of me, but.
Right, but there was about $500,000 that Passaic County Open Space had granted to us over the course of 2 grant cycles.
Three.
For the 3 grant cycles?
Yep.
For the Hewitt School field.
Correct.
And I think when we talked about doing this year's open space grant, we talked about, we'll have it mainly pointed at Stonetown, but also looking back at Hewitt, if that's a possibility, holding out the possibility that Hewitt might still happen. We kind of left both those things open. And now it sounds like Passaic County wants us to close, one or the other. And Hewitt sounds like it's the closest to being closed as anything. DEP simply is not going to permit, a artificial turf field on that field there.
You can't use the field that you're already using for turf field, so.
Yes.
That battery's about to die.
Shut it?
Yeah, you could just shut that down, yeah. Yeah, essentially, even though it's a field now and we cut it and we fertilize it and we do all that stuff.
It's a field forever.
For as long as
Probably
I
was a
can-
field before there was a reservoir. That's the school was like 1938 or something. The reservoir started filling up in 33.
I've been here 51 years and it's been a field
It's
ever
been a
since
field.
then, so, but whatever.
It's been a field.
So the resolution is to withdraw that application. It's required in order for them to consider the application for the other,
Stone Town.
yeah.
And to preserve the money.
Well, whether they do that or not, that's up to them. I can't, but it was recommended strongly.
Sure, yeah.
And this-
Well, the wording of the resolution kind of leads in that way, right?
Well, yes.
Okay, we're kind of, we'd be very disappointed if that $500,000 disappeared, right? That wouldn't be fair to our taxpayers who've been paying
Lot of phone
dutifully
calls.
into this open space fund.
And the application for Stone Town is already in.
It's in, yes.
They nip that deadline.
They're reviewing it. I think if we're going to do this, we need to do this at this meeting, otherwise I would have distributed it, but I think time is of the essence.
I think when we put that in, we knew that we had to withdraw here.
We talked about it.
Yeah, sooner or later.
I think the
Latest now.
the application even alludes to, if we get this grant, we would obviously have to give that one up, but they want something a little bit more definitive.
Is it too late to take a different approach with this open space money, perhaps with the objection that we've heard from the residents over in Stone Town?
Well, you could just give it up.
Well, I don't want to give it up, but I
Well,
thought
the application's
maybe we
already
could
in.
go-
We can't
okay.
change the application.
We can't
You
change the
could- you could-
application. That was my question.
You could withdraw the application.
Well, certainly, I don't want to withdraw it, but I've thought maybe bikes and pedestrian paths would be a good use of open space fund for this town, since that's something that's been sitting on the shelf for about 10 years.
That's certainly an option for next year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we need,
We need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. Mr. Bowman, Mr. Bernie. All right. Roll call, please. What was that resolution number?
2018-122.
2.
Councilmembers Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Mayor Spear.
Yes.
I have nothing else, Mayor.
All right, while you're still on the manager's report, can I say something?
Sure.
Okay. We've talked during the budget process over the last couple of months on need to have roads paved, et cetera, okay? And we have within the budget, we have a $40,000 down payment that can go to a bond. So what I'd like to do is get together with Ryan and John, and we have about $500,000 worth of roads that need to be paved, and a few other things. We'd like to have a meeting. We'll shoot you an email, and I'd like to introduce a bond ordinance at the next meeting, because what's happening is it's getting later into the season to be able to design what we're gonna do with the roads, and in order to get certain ones done in time for school opening, it's gotta kinda be done sooner than later. So, when's the next meeting?
June 19th.
June 19th? So, we should be able to get something to you for the next couple of weeks or so, and then I'd like to bring it up at the next meeting.
And if I remember correctly, we also, it's like roughly 355 left in a federal grant that we have to match?
That's-
Like,
DOT grant.
There's a DOT grant for next year, yes. Yeah.
It's like, if we don't, then we can't actually utilize the grant funds.
If you don't fund the DOT grant this year or next year, you will lose it. Yes.
So, is that acceptable to the council?
Sure.
We'll take a look at it and come up with something.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, and I was gonna say, I thought that you had shared a list of
Yeah, I
priority
distributed
items and put
roads
like
to
a
the
ride around.
Finance Committee, yes. I do need to add, unfortunately, we didn't put funding in place for our capital program before this. I did I have to add a few police items that are outdated, the recording devices, the video devices and stuff like that. They have outlived their useful life. We had to replace about $20,000 of it last week because it has to be available for evidence and testimony and whatever. So we already did some of that, but we do need to replace the balance of that. That's in your capital books, and just a few other minor items. But I will, Deputy Mayor, I will caution you that because we're not doing anything until mid-June, it's not likely that we would complete a road program prior to school starting, which means we will be impacting the buses and having to have different bus routes, because by the time June rolls around and we start and we put a bond in place, we have to design the road programs, we have to do the drainage work. You have to get in a list. Everybody right now has introduced and adopted their budgets, and they are on Tilcon's list for paving. We might be able to get us moved up the list, but it's not likely that you would get that done before September.
We get it done before the Haunted Hilly. We've always paved it right up to Halloween, right?
Let's see what we can put together. And then we'll get emails to everybody.
Okay, Mr. Heck, thank you, sir. Attorney's report.
Yes,
Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one item. That would be executive session matter followed by a public resolution. If the council so desires, I'll recite a resolution. Resolve that the municipal council enter an executive session to discuss the appointment of a licensed planning consultant for the affordable housing litigation, and that Banish Associates has tendered their resignation. Be it further resolved that minutes of the meeting may be maintained and be available for public inspection upon conclusion of litigation. The public is advised that the municipal council may take formal action on any matter discussed in the executive session, or may take formal action on any other matter.
Okay. Thank you. We need a motion,
Yes.
second motion on that resolution going into public, going to...
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Tucci. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Ferretti?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes. Okay. Next on our agenda will be general public comment number 2. Any members of the public wishing to address the mayor and council, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Peter Sando, 24 Highpoint Lane. I gotta say, I've been coming to these meetings, council meetings, for quite a while, maybe 10, 15 years, and I don't recall seeing so much of a questioning and lecturing of an opposing vote, of an alternate vote. Happened at one of the previous meetings and happened tonight twice. I think it's refreshing to have differences of opinion. It appears to me to be an attempt at intimidation. I don't like to see everybody voting yes, 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 especially on important issues. And I think that you were all elected by the people to vote however you wish, for whatever reason. And yeah, discussion is great, but I don't think that it should be talked down upon when somebody has an opposing view of a specific issue to vote on. Aside from that, number 2, if I may, the mayor focused the redevelopment plan for Skyline Drive on the retail rather than the affordable housing. And of course, as you were pointing out, since the early 70s, the development of regional malls and later on the power centers and big box stores have all hurt many downtown Main Street strip centers or shopping centers, and there is an overabundance of retail in this state, in this country. We all know that, and it's very competitive. In Ringwood, the one shopping center has done a very good job of sprucing up a bit when the CVS came in, and it's, I think, almost all rented. The other landlord is sitting on his property. He doesn't do any improvements. He will not, as always, he will not cut a deal with any of the tenants because he obviously does not want to set a precedent, and is obviously happy with 60% or whatever whatever it is, occupancy. He's probably still in the black. Redeveloping a shopping center that is dying like that, with more stores, more traffic, I don't think is the answer, in my opinion. I've been in probably 15 regional malls. I've been in malls that are very successful. When they redevelop, they usually expand if they're successful. If they're not successful, if they're a dead mall dying out, usually if they redevelop, they scale down. I don't think having more stores is going to attract more businesses to come into town. The rents will probably be higher. You're going to have the same amount of demand for retail. I don't think ecotourism should be scoffed at. You have to be creative. When people come and hike, no, they're not going to pay money to hike on the trail, but they may eat at a restaurant, they may buy some clothing, they may spend money in the town. I think that the Chamber of Commerce, if they're looking into ecotourism, I think they should continue on that path and maybe do a better job, because I don't see any brochures about all of our attractions in Ringwood. I don't see any signs about our attractions in Ringwood. I think there's a lot to be done there. As far as an economic development commission, if it exists, it should be revitalized, as Kathy said, because you need people. You people are not into retail that much. You need people who are retailers, store owners, businessmen, entrepreneurs, to advise on how to attract and maybe, do some, with it, in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce, do some promotion of our town. Then maybe this landlord can get his rent if there's more of a interest in the town as an entity for recreation or ecotourism. So I don't think you should, discount that. I think you have to have an open mind to it. It's often been discussed, but never implemented. So be open to any suggestions or any, and Kathy, I think you should pursue that. I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Toll, 24 Highpoint Lane. Let's see if my notes work here, because I didn't have a pen. First of all the engineering costs that you laid out to do the AstroTurf field at the Hewitt School, has that just gone up in smoke or what? It was a lot of money you put in there. So are you going to use the same plan or what?
That doesn't make any sense. What
Yeah.
do you...
Continue.
It doesn't make any sense?
Continue.
That's the question. Yeah. Are you going to use the same engineering plans that you had paid for, which I think was quite a bit of money, for the plans for the AstroTurf field at the Hewitt School, which anybody could have told you years ago that there's wetlands and trees across from the reservoir was not a good spot. But you paid for engineering plans for that, right? Did you or didn't you?
Of course we did.
Okay,
wait,
so
not
what do
really
you
go
got,
back
so
and
what,
forth.
so are those gonna still be good? Are those
Can you
plans?
close up? Can you bring your comments to a point? and to
Well,
a
that's
close?
my first one.
You do
No,
respond to
that's
some,
it.
you do respond to people who are agreeable with you, right?
No, not necessarily, sir. Actually, during the budget discussion, we did. We let that get away a little bit.
Okay, so you want me to go through everything and then you're gonna respond?
That would be delightful.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, you hired the engineering firm for the quarry. How often will they inspect? Okay. How often did they inspect last year? Were you kept apprised of the fact that the quarry was digging below Westbrook Road when it was happening?
False.
I have a good idea for ratables in town. I think the council should work with the Board of Ed and the residents in town, the parents, and do whatever they can to improve the quality of our schools. I don't think they have a very high rating in New Jersey. I know that when my first daughter, when she went to school here, there were so many more different programs, great books, and independent study, and those things. I mean, it's a long time ago. She's 42 years old, but I think as a community, if we focused on bettering our schools, it would increase property values. That's a very important thing. Increase property values, give you more ratables. Also, if this council was more, was supportive of a full cleanup of the Superfund site, I think that would help our rateable situation, because let's face it, the Highlands Act is here. Unless you guys want to go try to repeal it, why do you keep saying the same things over and over again? You have to learn to think out of the box, yes, and you have to learn to work with the law. It is what it is. And just because, I mean, you just keep saying that the Highlands Act, tax appeals, I thought the tax appeals from the reservoir and possibly the shopping centers was because they were overassessed. And I think a lot of people were overassessed, and then we had a turn down in the market, so people are appealing their taxes. And Ringwood, I understand houses are selling, but I don't think that the property values in Ringwood are the same as surrounding towns. The other thing that interested me in your budget presentation was the fact that where our budget was compared to all the other towns except for West Milford are paved over, and their taxes are higher than ours. They have tons of retail, tons of rental, tons and tons. So that does not necessarily bring your taxes down.
That's not what that says, but
Okay, well, you can tell me I'm wrong when it's your turn to talk. So the other thing is, I remember years ago when the quarry was going to come in. That was supposed to be a great rateable. We get, what, $40,000 a year and then some extraction fees? And I liked your idea a couple of weeks ago, Mayor, that talking about maybe looking how assessments are done in town. Maybe it has to be on how much a business is making. I mean, they've got to be making millions over there. And then I remember when the ridge lines were destroyed, that was supposed to bring lots of ratables too. And I don't know, I think we really have to come together as a community and start thinking about working with what we have, which is open space, state parks, botanical gardens, hiking. There's no other town in New Jersey 50 miles outside of Manhattan that has to offer what Ringwood does. And I mean, Peter's right. I mean, I can't believe there isn't a brochure that we can just hand to people or that's on the web page that sort of lays out exactly what Ringwood has to offer. And I mean, with the fact that we're limited in development to footprints that are already here, that, you know, we have to increase our property values. I mean, that's the beauty of living in Ringwood, is that we come over that mountain and we breathe a sigh of relief because we're in a place that is protected. So that's my little spiel. And I'm wondering if the Superfund Committee has met? No? Do you intend to? And I don't know how many meetings you're having at Thursday night, but I'm going to take a last-ditch effort here and ask you once again to allow the CAG to meet at Borough Hall on Thursdays. It could be any other evening, so that we can begin our meetings later, so that more of the public could come, and it would be closer for the people that are mostly affected by the site, that live in Upper Ringwood. It would be easier for them to get here than it is to get to the library. And televise it. We have we have submitted a YouTube. No, we had submitted our meeting. My daughter videoed it, Peter, and she edited it, and we have submitted it to the borough with an application and a letter as per the cable rules. But why weren't we told that there was an application to fill out? We've been trying to figure out how to get these things on Channel 77, and it's just like last week that we were told there was an application. So we've submitted it, and hopefully that'll be aired. The meetings will be regularly aired on Channel 77. Thanks.
Paul Rubacki, 99 Edward Drive. Couple things. One, there's about 100 and something families out of power tonight, which seems like a regular event. One of the things I've just been thinking about, I haven't figured out how it's like, I have a generator at home. Like during the snowstorms, I let my generator out to people. I don't know if we can figure out a way. I don't think the borough should necessarily be involved, but if there's a way to create some type of exchange where people who are need and people who are willing to help can kind of find each other, so that, you know, people, as I know, you know, you'll start to hear tomorrow about, you know, moms with families with newborn kids and things like that. So, you know, it's something to think about. The other thing is, second thing is, now that the power line is in from up here down to Skyline Drive, it really highlights the old railroad bed, and it would be great to see if at this point, if while it really looks nice and it's pristine, can the reservoir put in a bike path or something like that. We talk a lot about ecotourism and things like that, and I've lived up here not as long as Scott. I'm a little younger, but it really, you never really, people didn't know where the railroad bed was. You heard about it, you just assumed it was flooded. But the thing is, it really looks nice and usable, and it would be nice to be able to traverse or to run. You know, it's probably the flattest place in Ringwood to run, you know. So it's something to think about.
I asked them yesterday, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
They said no.
Oh. We'll give them $50 more off their taxes if they say yes. Now that the governor has signed it into law, any thoughts about creating a charitable thing for Ringwood to be able to donate taxes? I'm not pro that, but it's just, again, one of my concern is, I think I haven't heard any town doing it yet. My concern is net, it's going to be a loss when we talk about the budget. The overhead of running this thing is going to be negative. It's going to be net lost taxes to all the towns when you get done. Everybody else will get rich and not the town. Okay. Councilwoman O'Keefe, you mentioned there was like a special meeting with the auditor to go over stuff. Was that like is that like a normal annual meeting? Is it part of their scope of services? Is this like extra services? And if it's extra services, how much did it cost? Is that like a $200 charge or a $2,000 charge? That's it. Thank you.
Thank
All right. Jamie Landis, 15 Mohican Court. Landis is going rogue tonight because after sitting here from 7:30 till now 10, almost 10:15, the only thing that comes to mind is I feel like a character in Romeo and Juliet. I feel like Mercutio, who says, "A curse on both your houses." We are never going to be able to make Ringwood the great place that it needs to be and can be if we don't really start working together. It's just not gonna work. And part of working together is also part of understanding everything needs to be done in moderation. We can't run a community only green. We can't run a community only on ecotourism, but we can run a community including those things and making it great. So what I would say is I would urge everybody to understand that moderation needs to be had here. I agree, we can't scoff at the whole ecotourism thing because there are some opportunities there. Ringwood can be everything to everybody. I love to shop, why can't I shop in a thriving downtown? You love to hike, why can't you hike in a thriving area? Just because maybe I don't love to hike doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to, and just because I love to shop doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to, because you might not like to shop. Moderation, folks. I mean, my God, moderation. We have to come to a point where all I hear all night long is extremes, extremes. I will also say this, Councilman Martucci, I understand your frustration right now because you were ahead of a finance committee. You put together a budget, working with people from both sides of the aisle, and then all of a sudden you're blindsided by two council people who vote no to that. I can understand your frustration, and again, that doesn't lend itself to teamwork. I would say moving forward, be better than this. Be better than that. I don't know. Play in the sandbox correctly.
Rich Eversbach, 120 Upper Lakeview Ave. With the ecotourism, I agree with what Jamie said and what everybody's talking about. Ringwood is a great town. We have that component here. But at the end of the day, we're raising taxes. I think the number was $370,000 this year. Next year, it's going to be more. The following year, it's going to be more. We're talking about millions of dollars. So I think, and my hat goes off to Jim, what you said. I think people need to communicate more. Sometimes you just got to pick up the telephone and make that call and talk to people and try to avoid some of the strife. But I think we really have to have responsibility and reality. And time after time, I keep hearing these wild, especially regarding the Superfund. I'm looking at the data that's on the website. All these people are in agreement, basically by saying, we have 100,000 tons of this, or the dam is gonna break and it's all gonna run down, or the bedrock is fractured. All these, as an example, all these things, they just really are saying that everybody else is lying. You go, all these people, all these professional people have been working on this for years. Their careers are based on this. So to come out and continually say, clean up, not cover up, this, the other thing, it's not going to forward the town. It's not going to, certainly not forwarding the environmental impact that we're going to be having here. It's irresponsible. To make, the first time I was on the Environmental Commission, there was a question posed to the Environmental Commission. Is it safe to play on the ball field because it's getting watered from the stream that comes out of Sally's Pond? Now, the information on the water going into the pond, I guess it's maybe a 5 gallon per minute flow, and they had to detect. As soon as it hits the water, it's not detectable. We're talking about a billionth. We're talking about a billionth. I don't know how many people can even really conceive how small a billionth is. It goes into a lake, goes into a stream, goes onto a field, gets watered, and then somebody comes to this microphone and says, is it safe for the children to play ball on the field? Now, the information has been out. All the data has been out for years. Yet, how are we going to move forward as a town? How is the council going to move forward as a council with irresponsible claims and continuous claims from the public as well? The Highlands Act, it's not arguable that it's impacted the tax base of this town. To say it's a crutch is just not accurate. It's not a crutch, it's a fact. Yes, are there other factors? Yes, there are. But we can't just continue to throw around these wild accusations and things that are not rooted in reality and expect to move forward as a town. I love this town. I've been here for 25 years. I pay taxes. I've paid taxes for 25 years into the school system. I don't have children. My garbage gets picked up over on Executive Parkway. We're paying property taxes just like everybody else, but we're not putting anybody into the schools. So what are we going to save by not picking up garbage? Really, it doesn't add up. If ecotourism, or if there's a business idea, personally, my opinion is, we're the Chamber of Commerce. These guys are the people with money at stake in town. They're the guys that have the experience, that have made money on a business, or in some cases, have lost money with a business. If there's an idea that's so good, put your money down, start a business, and start making it an example. We could have an economic commission. Why don't we just sit down with the Chamber of Commerce? Those guys have been in town. They understand the business dynamics. They're the ones that are holding the bag at the end of the day if their company doesn't make money. It can be frustrating. I understand. You want to vote no on a budget. The budget is just not an issue. It's the main issue. It's the main issue of the whole year. And going forward, what we're facing, what we all know we've been facing, it's going to continue to be even a harder issue. And I think the frustration from everybody is felt that, look, we're trying to work together on this. And I understand maybe feeling like it's a slap in the face on a no vote. I get it. I understand your position. I'm the last guy that wants to raise taxes. On the other hand, we want to be a team, and you want to work together. Everybody in town benefits when this council works together. So I just would like to see a responsibility and based in some sort of reality. I think maybe the mayor had touched on that a little bit. We're not talking about $300. We're talking about $370,000 that we got to come up with this year. Next year is going to be more. The year after that, it's just going to continue. And that's it. Thank you.
I'll take a motion. Thank you, Mr. Matucci.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call on closing public, too.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Ferretti?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Councilmembers Noonan?
Yes.
O'Keefe? Mayor Steele?
Yes. Mayors and member of the council. Councilman Davison, do you have anything to take us out here with tonight?
Just looking at, I see you have a budget decrease of $95,000 in the operating budget.
Yeah. We cut
Decent.
expenses from last year.
Yeah.
And still have a tax increase.
I know.
It's heartbreaking.
I know, I just wanted to mention that because I didn't realize it until I looked at the page.
Yes.
But on that basis alone, whoever put the budget together did a good job. What can we do about it? I don't know, maybe ask the county to reduce taxes, I have no idea. Something has to be done.
Yeah, you did. Yes. Thank you, sir. Councilwoman O'Keefe?
Yeah, I wanted to say that at the last meeting, Councilman Davidson had suggested that we reach out to Governor Murphy to up the amount of taxes that we can deduct, and that did happen. It went from 10,000 to 15,000, so I was happy to hear that people will be able to deduct a little bit more from the New Jersey state income tax. That was good news. I think the audience brought up the SALT, charitable contribution law. I agree that it's something that might be complicated, but from my understanding is that 33 other states use this formula. They're mostly in the South. Maybe that's why their taxes look so much better than ours, because instead of saying they're charging these property taxes, they're doing charitable contributions for their education. Not sure. I just think we need to keep a close eye on it, watch what other municipalities come up with, follow it closely so that we can see if we can bring tax relief to our citizens in any way, shape, or form. I do commend, as I said before, the hard work that this budget committee put in. I'd also like to see, and I would like to propose, that we do revitalize the Economic Commission. I don't see a downside to having one. And I'd also like to see the Vacancy Act resolution that we had a few meetings ago that was pulled to be reviewed by our attorney, brought back to the table. There are properties sitting in Ringwood, the two that I mentioned for 120 in Cupsaw and the other one in Erskine are vacant. Nobody's living in them. We have vacant properties. There's one on the corner by your house, Rob, Longview and Valley. It's an eyesore. I think these vacant properties, not only in the commercial area, but in our residential area, draw down our property values that surround it. I think that property was hit by Hurricane Eileen. I think it goes Irene, right? Back before Sandy, that's when that one hit. And that house has been sitting in disrepair since. And the properties around it are beautiful. And it's what they have to look at when they look out their windows. So let's bring that back. Let's work together. I agree with Councilman Martucci. Communication's key. We need to talk. I would love to go to a redevelopment committee meeting, if possible, in the near future, and work with this council to resolve these issues. Thank you.
Councilman Bolton.
Oh, man, I thought I had like the whole thing.
We're-
All right.
Half a page.
I'll start with following up with what Kathy had said. Communication is one of those things. It's, in any relationship, it's both the most important thing and it's also probably the hardest thing. Can always be improved, and we'll definitely continue to improve it, while acknowledging the fact that it's one of those things that's very easy to say but can sometimes be hard to do effectively. I will say that communication also doesn't always result in consensus or consistency. And I will say for my part, on the topic of the budget, sharing information, passing it along, there's obviously always going to be limitations to secondhand information. People are going to do their own homework and do their own reading and sometimes arrive to different conclusions, you know, and I don't agree with anybody around this table all the time, or in my house, especially in my house. So that's just going to happen even with the best of communications or scenarios. We won't run through everything. I'm just going to pick on the time capsule ceremony. I'm going to jump right to the nice thing. We had a great day for it. It was really well put together by Kelly and the team here. We had an amazing turnout. I think we ran out of chairs. We had great weather and a great time, great slideshow and snacks here. Fan of food whenever we can have it and get it. And it was a great day. And one thing that I did want to highlight that I think got missed in the communications and talk about it is that Kelly had proposed the 5th because it was the incorporation date of the borough. So while I don't think anybody would have questioned it because it was a beautiful spring day, it also had meaning. 6th was the incorporation, but the 5th was available. So as close as we could get. But wanted to highlight that it was actually a significant date in borough history, as well as just being a really nice day to be out at the manor. And everything else can be saved.
Councilman Ferretti.
I respect and appreciate the hard work that went into the budget. I don't mean any disrespect by my no vote, but I definitely don't look forward to raising taxes at all. That said, I feel like Ringwood is missing something this spring, and it's obvious to me we don't have a farmer's market. My family would go there, and it was kind of a thing we'd do every weekend. I don't know if, I know there was plans to bring the farmer's market back. I don't know where it stands. I thought it would be happening already. But if there's any way that I can help, if whoever from the farmer's market wants to reach out, I would be happy to help in any way we can. I know it was brought to my attention that at some point for the old farmer's market, we had waived some kind of fee that they had, and if maybe the council could still waive that fee, if it would help them reestablish, maybe we could go ahead and do that. That's really all I have, though. Hopefully spring stays with us for at least a few more weeks. We don't really jump right into summer from winter, but look forward to seeing everybody out at the soccer field as I am often there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Noon.
Budgets are always tough. Thank you to the Budget Committee. And I have found a bright spot I want to highlight right about the budget. How about 123,000 and 43,000? Respectively, those are the numbers that the fire companies get. Total to the fire company, total to the ambulance corps. Those are great numbers. A testament to the volunteerism in this town. That's all they get from the town to operate, to cover us and keep us safe. They do a tremendous amount of other fundraising. There's other line items here in equipment, but that's, whether we had a paid fire department or volunteers, we'd have to buy the equipment, so that's immaterial to this. But I also want to thank all the ambulance corps, all the ambulance members, all the fire departments for everything they do. And for 123,000, they operate 3 fire departments and 43,000 operate an ambulance corps. That, to me, is what shows how great Ringwood can be.
Agreed.
Thank you for that. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Couple things. One of the things is, in terms of Channel 77, okay, I think we should relook at the whole thing, because you do have more and more people dropping cable. So while it's a public access channel, years ago, cable was cheap. And we're gonna have to kind of relook at it, because we have to kind of go with the times. I mean, I don't read a daily newspaper, okay? So it's gonna become obsolete in the form that we currently have, because you're gonna have less and less of viewership. And we could probably even save money by going to other options. But, I mean, you can look on Facebook and see how many people every day talk about dropping cable. So, it's gonna be, at a certain point in time, a non-public access, because you're just not gonna have people with the ability to see it. So I think it deserves a relook. As you can tell, I'm passionate about the budget. Okay. But I'm really more passionate with communication. And we need to talk. I mean, we walk into this budget period already $20,000 to $30,000 in the hole because of the extra storms that we had. So we already had to look to make up some of that money. The other thing is we're looking at next year. We're going to have tax increase next year. We're looking at possibly $125 increase. The year after could be $150, $175. it's not gonna get any better. So we're looking at this year, trying to absorb certain areas that we can spend to offset some expenses from next year. But next year is not gonna be better because we have a big hit on the lost revenue from the Wanakee Reservoir. So part of our philosophy was to see, okay, what we can do this year to lower the potential increase in taxes that's definitely coming next year. And so there is a method to the madness, and, you know, sometimes we can't explain that to everybody so they understand the purposes, but again, I would just greatly appreciate if people have a viewpoint, they communicate that sooner than later. And maybe we can help you along a little bit. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. You know about the people not getting cable anymore? Changes the whole paradigm. What I think it was that cable would get an exclusive franchise to operate in the borough. Part of that deal, the state BPU made them pay for cable equipment to broadcast our stuff on the local system, you know? And now you're getting away from where cable is even a player anymore. Well, we're gonna have to sink some money into hard costs for the equipment, because we would get that equipment updated every time their franchise rolls over, you know? There's a whole new way that we gotta think about this stuff now, and you brought that to light, and that's, you know, hopefully we get a couple more years out of our equipment so that we can prepare ourselves for what happens next time through. And you know what, that happened, Counselor, wasn't Verizon, the Verizon tax, where once they lose 51% of their landlines in town,
Yep.
they pull out on you, you know, where all these upheavals are, you know, they kind of hit you in oblique ways that, you know, it's not directly right at you, but it changes the way that municipalities do business. That stuff's changing all the time on us. I heard a comment, general public portion, number 2, more stores in the Skyline Drive redevelopment area probably is not a good idea. I think that the current plan has less retail square footage than is existing now, recognizing the fact that a whole bunch of it has been vacant for a while, and there's no expectation that, you know, making more empty boxes doesn't seem to make any help there. Engineering costs for Hewitt Field, don't know exactly what they are. Those costs are sunk. They're gone. Those plans are not usable for any place else. Their plans are specific to a site. It's a site plan. How often does the quarry get inspected? 4 times a year. It was inspected 4 times last year. It'll be inspected 4 times this year. Were we apprised when the quarry was digging below Westbrook Road? I think we crossed that barrier in 2005. I think Jerry Vogel stood about 4 feet behind where Mr. Bolton sits right now, and said, we've been below, what's the elevation, 370? 370 is the number, Counselor? Yes. We've been below 370. We're digging below 370. I think you were sitting in this chair.
No,
and-
sir.
No? Okay, you were at the council. Joe Mariziti was in this chair.
Let me say,
I was watching the
sitting in
meeting.
that chair, but the 370 was not on the table, and what you're saying, Mr. Vogel said, he said in 2013. They've been digging below 370 for 7 years, and now the borough, meaning you, is taking us to court. Did not happen in 2005. Go to the minutes.
Well,
Go to the minutes.
I'll have those minutes next meeting.
Good. So will I.
The state and local tax, I don't want to address this now. The state and local tax deductibility, I think the Senate passed that bill and the governor signed it, I want to say in the first week of May. It has a whole mess of implementing regulations that have to go through the various departments of Treasury and whatnot to get us to a point where we can actually operate on it. I don't think it actually becomes effective until like the first week of July or something like that.
July 3rd.
There's a lot more going on with it. We don't know. We'll take a look. They do have all types of cutouts, though. You know, the borough keeps a piece of, you know, some kind of administrative fee, and then you can also charge an administrative fee to the municipality and to the school boards that you collect for. It's a Jersey thing. So we'll take a look at it when it actually becomes more into reality. As far as keeping an open mind to ecotourism, it's not that my mind is closed. I've heard of this ecotourism since the dawn of the Highlands Act. I was around there in 2004 for that, so I was on the planning board here during that time, and they were telling us about ecotourism the whole time through, how that's something we have to look at, and it's something we have to look at, and I mean that was the infancy of the idea, and now the idea is like past puberty, and it's 14 years now, and we got to look into ecotourism, and it kind of got to be a punchline to me after about 10 years. I said, you know what, maybe there ain't not much to this tower, but I'm always open-minded. Please bring forth some ideas on how this is actually good. I really think ecotourism is more about, like, you know, you're driving traffic through town with very little incremental dollars getting into the borough coffers. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking. But if somebody could show me a different model, I am just so eager to listen to it. God, I'll give you my whole weekend. I'll sit here with you, and you can tell me all about it. I'd love to hear it. With that, I think we're gonna.
You missed a few. If you want me to add.
Okay, if you can be quick.
Really brief. The auditor is charging for the meeting. I don't have the bill yet, but that's Paul asked that question. The CAG did submit a videotape on Monday. I was not here Monday. Tuesday or Wednesday, I sent them the application. I followed up yesterday to say, hey, listen, I sent you the application. I didn't get it back. He said, I'm sorry. I'll get it to you. I don't know that you said he came today, Kelly?
Yes, it's in the.
It's submitted today, so I'll take a look at it and go from there. It's been an application that's been there since the litigation over the cable TV station 15 years ago. So,
But it's not on the website,
so
that
the
application.
I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not gonna engage at this point. The quarry was a great rateable. No one ever said the quarry was a great rateable. I think it's been fought ever since it came here. And I'm not gonna make a comment about the schools not being up to par according to Vanka, and I think that's it.
I just have two really quick things.
Really?
Really?
Okay. Why not?
They're just two things. First of all, with just.
Happy stuff?
Happy stuff with the
Oh, would you
centennial,
please?
because
look
you
at that?
forgot. So
Yeah.
I would like to mention that the fourth grade classes from you at school submitted these things around the council table that celebrate Ringwood's 100th anniversary. And if anybody wants to take a look at them, they did a phenomenal job. There's all kinds of pictures and stories and history about the town that goes back 100 years, and they really did a great job. And they were, unfortunately, weren't submitted in time for the 5th, but we're going to keep them up here for a little while, and then maybe I'll bring them over to the library. We'll see what happens there. And then I just wanted to announce that the Ringwood Christian School is hosting a fish and chips / chicken and chips dinner on Friday, May 18th. Take in from 5 to 6. Eat in 5:30 to 7:30, and the price is $15. And for tickets, you can call 973-962-4996. Sorry.
Thank you very much for that, Kelly. We have a motion and second to go into executive session. If nobody has anything further, we will adjourn to executive session.
Got a spreadsheet of everything they want from us to fill out for this.
I have a water question for you guys. I didn't want to do it on the record.
Shut the mics off, please.